In a dimly lit gallery in the heart of Paris, a single painting commands more attention than entire halls of masterpieces combined. Behind glass and under the constant gaze of cameras, the Mona Lisa sits silent, eternal. People from every corner of the world stand shoulder to shoulder, phones raised high, eyes straining for a glimpse of her face. And yet, no matter how many look at her, the question remains the same. Why does she hold us in her spell? Why does this single woman, half smiling, half hiding, seem to guard a secret that centuries of scholars have failed to unravel? Her smile is neither joy nor sorrow. It is not simply an accident of shadow and light. It is a deliberate ambiguity, a coded expression that has teased generations. The corners of her lips curve just enough to suggest a knowing smirk, while the softness of her eyes suggests serenity, almost sadness. People have described her as mocking, tender, haunted, even divine. But what if this strangeness is not the product of chance? What if Leonardo da Vinci, the man who painted her, intended her smile to be more than a portrait? What if it was a message? The Mona Lisa has been called the most studied, most written about, most parroted painting in the world. Yet the more it is examined, the more elusive it becomes. Scientists have used infrared scans to peel back her layers. They have discovered corrections hidden beneath the final surface, details invisible to the naked eye, and even traces of letters faintly drawn into her pupils. Conspiracy theorists claim the landscape in the background is a map, that her position encodes sacred geometry, that the painting is itself a cipher disguised as art. Each claim seems outrageous. Yet the mystery only deepens because Leonardo was not a man to leave anything unconsidered. Every brushstroke was purposeful, every detail a clue. Imagine the world into which this painting was born. Renaissance Florence, a city blazing with brilliance and risk. Knowledge was advancing rapidly, but so too was fear. The church's shadow loomed long. Heresy could mean ruin or death. In this world, if you wanted to express dangerous truths about science, about faith, about human nature, you had to hide them carefully. Leonardo lived within that tension. He was fascinated by anatomy, geometry, the movement of water and stars, all subjects that risked contradicting dogma. He was also endlessly playful with puzzles and codes, a man who wrote entire notebooks backwards in mirror script. Could it be possible that he hid ideas not in ink alone, but in the very pigment of his paintings? The Mona Lisa, then, may be more than a portrait. She may be a silent book. Her smile, her gaze, her hands, the faint bridge in the background, the strange winding rivers. Each element could be a page of a story. But what story? Some believe she represents an ideal of womanhood. Others that she embodies Leonardo's vision of the perfect human form. More daring theories suggest she is a disguised self-portrait, Leonardo painting his own soul in feminine form. Still others argue she conceals sacred truths about the balance of masculine and feminine, hints of secret knowledge carried from ancient traditions into Renaissance art. And what of the viewer's own role? When you stand before her, you are pulled into the painting itself. Look long enough, and her smile seems to shift, her eyes seem to follow, her silence seems to speak. This effect is not an accident. Leonardo was a master of optical tricks, of sfumato, his signature technique that blurred lines and edges so that light and shadow merged seamlessly. With sfumato, he made her appear alive, changing from moment to moment, as though her secret waits to be discovered only by those who dare to keep looking. Consider, too, that Leonardo never sold the painting. He kept it with him, carrying it through his life, bringing it to France when he entered the service of the king. It was one of his final works, one he refused to part with. Why? Was it simply a work of love? Or was it too important, too dangerous to release? Perhaps he knew that in her silence, in her strange presence, he had hidden something that would outlive him. The Mona Lisa haunts us not because she is beautiful, but because she is unfinished in our minds. She resists final meaning. Every time one theory rises, another contradicts it. She becomes, in effect, a mirror, reflecting not only Leonardo's secrets, but our own desire to know, to solve, to conquer mystery. She is timeless because she remains unsolved. And yet, there is one certainty. If Leonardo da Vinci was capable of encoding ideas within his art, if he truly was the man who disguised science as painting and rebellion as beauty, then the Mona Lisa is not merely a masterpiece. It is a key to understanding how he thought, how he resisted, how he dreamed. And if that is true, then every glance at her is a step closer to unlocking a message 500 years old. What then does she guard behind her smile? Is it a hidden truth about the nature of humanity? A reflection of Leonardo himself? Or perhaps something far more daring? A secret meant to challenge the authority of his age? We cannot yet answer with certainty. But as we step deeper into Leonardo's life and work, one thing becomes clear. The Mona Lisa is only the beginning of his code. He was born in 1452 in a small town called Vinci, the illegitimate son of a notary and a peasant woman. By all accounts, Leonardo da Vinci should have lived an ordinary life, bound to the soil and silence of rural Tuscany. And yet, from this quiet origin emerged a man who would become the very definition of genius, a figure who seemed to belong more to the future than the century in which he lived. But Leonardo was never simply a painter, never only a scientist. He was an enigma, wrapped in contradictions, a man whose brilliance was matched only by his secrecy. From the beginning, Leonardo walked between worlds. He had no formal education in Latin or Greek, the scholarly languages of the Renaissance elite. Instead, he taught himself through observation, through sketches, through endless curiosity. He filled notebooks with drawings of birds in flight, machines that never existed, dissections of the human body, mathematical puzzles, and strange symbols that scholars are still deciphering. His handwriting ran backwards, mirrored across the page, as if he were writing not for others but for himself, or perhaps for those clever enough to read the reflection. Was it habit? Protection? Or was it a code, a deliberate way of hiding forbidden knowledge? To his contemporaries, Leonardo was both dazzling and perplexing. He could design a weapon of war one day, then sketch the delicate anatomy of a flower the next. He painted some of the most famous images in history, yet often left his works unfinished, abandoning commissions to chase new fascinations. Patrons were frustrated by his restlessness, but they could not ignore the power of his vision. He was called a man who could bend reality itself onto paper. And yet, behind the brilliance, there was always something hidden. Leonardo avoided public debates, rarely published his findings, and often cloaked his most radical thoughts in allegory or cryptic notes. He was fascinated by the mechanics of the world, how light bent, how blood flowed, how water moved, and in an age when questioning divine design could bring ruin, he often disguised his discoveries as artistic curiosities. His secrecy was not simply eccentricity, it was survival. Even in his art, Leonardo seemed to delight in puzzles. His compositions were layered with geometry, with subtle gestures and symbols that ordinary viewers would miss, but keen eyes might find. A hand pointing, a gaze directed at nothing, a hidden pattern of triangles or circles, each detail carefully arranged, each detail demanding interpretation. If others painted to be seen, Leonardo painted to be studied, to be questioned. His works invite us not simply to look, but to look again and again until the hidden meaning begins to surface. But what kind of man was Leonardo beyond the notebooks and canvases? His contemporaries describe him as striking, tall, with flowing hair and a presence that commanded attention. He was vegetarian in a time when few were rumored to buy caged birds simply to release them into the air. He wore bright clothing, carried himself with elegance, and yet kept a distance from the conventional ties of family, marriage, or even church. He lived outside the norms of his day, both admired and whispered about. Some saw him as dangerously independent, others as divinely inspired. Perhaps this is why his work feels so full of secrecy, because Leonardo himself lived as a secret. He was a man who did not belong to the strict order of the Renaissance, who slipped between its boundaries, who saw the world as a puzzle waiting to be solved. And like his art, he refused to give himself fully away. When we examine Leonardo, we are left with paradoxes. He was the greatest artist of his time, yet produced only a handful of completed paintings. He was a scientist centuries ahead of his age, yet never published his theories. He lived in the courts of dukes and kings, yet remained forever apart, never bound by loyalty to any one power. He gave us images so iconic they define human imagination, and yet his life is filled with silences, blank spaces, lost works, scattered pages of notebooks that hint at more than they reveal. And so Leonardo remains, even today, an unsolved mystery. We call him a genius, but the word feels too small, too blunt. Genius describes skill, brilliance, invention. But Leonardo was more than that. He was a man who lived as though he carried secrets no one else could see. He seemed to paint with both light and shadow, to write with both fact and riddle, to live with both wonder and caution. This, perhaps, is why his art feels like a hidden code. Because Leonardo himself was a code, fragmented, elusive, layered with meaning. To understand him, to truly grasp what he may have hidden in his paintings, we must step into his world. A world where science brushed against heresy, where beauty was a weapon, where symbols were shields, and where every stroke of a brush might carry a truth too dangerous to speak aloud. Leonardo da Vinci was not just a man of the Renaissance. He was its mystery, its riddle, its unanswered question. And if we wish to understand the symbols in his art, we must first accept this truth. The man himself was the greatest secret of all. To understand Leonardo, one must first understand the furnace that forged him, Florence. In the 15th century, Florence was not simply a city. It was a crucible of brilliance and danger, where genius and heresy often stood side by side. On its cobblestone streets, bankers and merchants whispered of politics, while poets and painters gave birth to the Renaissance. It was a city alive with vision, but also shadowed by fear. For Florence, in all its glory, burned with both light and fire. This was the home of the Medici, the most powerful family in the city, patrons of art and science, yet masters of intrigue and manipulation. Their wealth poured into cathedrals, libraries, and palaces, turning Florence into a workshop of beauty. But their power also drew enemies, and their courts were filled with conspiracy. Artists who flourished under Medici patronage lived under their shadow, bound to their expectations. Leonardo himself would eventually be drawn into this web of politics, painting for dukes and rulers who demanded loyalty while hiding his own questions and doubts behind brush and ink. Florence was also a city of contradictions. Here, new humanist philosophies flourished, an idea that man could shape his destiny, that reason and study could unlock the secrets of the universe. But at the same time, the church held its grip tightly. Preachers thundered from pulpits against vanity and sin. The Inquisition loomed in the background, ready to silence dangerous thought. To question the divine order was to risk everything. The city itself was alive with symbols. Walk its streets, and you would see frescoes and statues bursting with hidden references, saints posed like pagan gods, biblical figures wrapped in Platonic geometry. Florence was a language of stone and paint, where every surface could be read as both sacred and secret. This was the atmosphere that surrounded Leonardo as he came of age, a world where artists did not merely decorate but encoded meaning, where patrons expected not only beauty but power hidden in allegory. Yet Florence was not only the cradle of brilliance, it was also a city that burned, literally and figuratively. In 1494, the monk Savonarola rose to power. Preaching against corruption and vanity, he turned Florence into a city of fire. The infamous bonfire of the vanities consumed paintings, books, and even instruments, objects deemed sinful. For an artist like Leonardo, who valued knowledge above all, such a spectacle was terrifying. The flames were not only physical but symbolic, a reminder that the same city that nurtured genius could also destroy it in an instant. Leonardo's art, viewed against this backdrop, begins to take on new meaning. Was his subtlety, his blurred lines, his cryptic details, a way of surviving the fire? By painting ambiguity instead of clarity, by layering hidden meanings into gestures and landscapes, Leonardo could express dangerous ideas without inviting destruction. His art became a mask, one that concealed as much as it revealed. And it was not only religion that threatened him. Florence was a battlefield of rival families, shifting alliances, and foreign invasions. The streets ran with whispers of betrayal. France, Spain, and the Papal States all cast greedy eyes toward Tuscany. Artists like Leonardo did not live apart from this world. They were entangled in it, often employed by the very forces that waged war. Leonardo would sketch weapons for one ruler, then design fortifications for another, always walking the line between creation and destruction. But amid this chaos, Florence shone as the brightest light of the Renaissance. It was here that Botticelli painted goddesses that looked like visions from antiquity, where Michelangelo sculpted stone into the very essence of human form, where poets rediscovered the voices of the ancients. Knowledge flowed like a river through its libraries and workshops. Ideas leapt from astronomy to anatomy, from poetry to philosophy, intertwining disciplines in ways the world had never seen before. Leonardo stood in the center of this storm, absorbing, questioning, recording. His notebooks reveal a man who looked at the world around him with insatiable hunger. He sketched Florentine bridges, studied its machines, and captured its faces. He lived in a city that demanded both brilliance and caution, and this duality shaped everything he created. Florence in Leonardo's time was like a double-edged sword, dazzling, inspiring, but dangerous. A place where beauty was celebrated, but could also be condemned. A place where an artist could rise to glory and just as quickly fall to ruin. To live here was to walk on a razor's edge, balancing wonder against fear. And so when we look at Leonardo's art, with its strange silences and subtle codes, we must remember this city of flames. Florence taught him that truth was dangerous, that beauty could be weaponized, that symbols were the safest way to speak when words could betray. Behind every gesture, every shadow, every smile, we must ask, was this Leonardo's shield against the fire of Florence? For in a city where knowledge could enlighten but also destroy, Leonardo learned the most important lesson of all, to hide truth in plain sight. Before he became the legend we know, Leonardo was an apprentice, a boy of 17, entering the bustling workshop of Andrea del Verrocchio in Florence, carrying with him nothing but raw talent, endless curiosity, and a mind already filled with questions. This was the place where paint mixed with sweat, where pigments were ground by hand, where marble dust clung to the air. It was here that Leonardo began to shape himself, not only as an artist, but as a keeper of secrets. Verrocchio's workshop was more than a studio. It was a forge of the Renaissance, a hive of creation where paintings, sculptures, and designs for pageants and festivals were produced for Florence's elite. Apprentices were expected to master every skill: drawing, mixing colors, carving, even the mathematics of perspective. They learned discipline, but they also learned to look beneath the surface of things, to find meaning in detail. For Leonardo, whose mind never stopped wandering, this environment was both a challenge and a playground. The stories tell us that Leonardo's talent startled his master. In one famous account, Verrocchio was painting a depiction of Christ's baptism. He allowed his young apprentice to contribute, assigning him the figure of an angel. When the painting was finished, Verrocchio supposedly saw Leonardo's angel, with its softness, its subtle expression, its lifelike detail, and realized his student had surpassed him. According to legend, he vowed never to paint again. Whether or not the story is true, it captures the aura of Leonardo's early genius. Even as a teenager, he could make art that felt alive, carrying whispers of mystery. But beyond the brushwork, there was something else taking shape. In Verrocchio's workshop, Leonardo was exposed to the hidden languages of the Renaissance. Artists and craftsmen often filled their work with allegory and symbols, details meant to please the educated viewer or to hint at truths too dangerous to speak openly. It was a visual vocabulary, passed from master to apprentice, that could disguise philosophy beneath beauty. Leonardo absorbed this world hungrily, training not just his hand but his eye for the hidden. We see signs of this in his earliest sketches. In his notebooks from this period, animals twist into hybrids, human faces morph into grotesque caricatures, plants curl in strange and mathematical patterns. At first glance, they look like whimsical doodles, but they are more than idle amusement. These drawings reveal a mind already fascinated with transformation, disguise, and a layering of meaning. A horse might be an experiment in anatomy, but also a metaphor for power. A distorted face might be a study in humor, but also a way of exploring the hidden masks people wear. The shadows of his apprenticeship were not only artistic. Leonardo's illegitimacy meant he stood outside the formal structures of Florentine society. He could not attend the universities reserved for legitimate sons. He did not have the status to inherit his father's notary profession. Instead, he had freedom and danger. He was forced to carve his own path, and in that space he developed habits of secrecy. Perhaps this is why his notebooks were written backwards, why his ideas often appear half-concealed. He learned early to live on the edges of acceptance, to protect his thoughts even as he pursued them. The workshop also exposed him to science disguised as art. Perspective demanded geometry. Pigments required chemistry. Sculpting required understanding the mechanics of balance and tension. To paint a face, one had to know anatomy. Leonardo drank deeply from all of it, and more, turning every task into an investigation. He dissected dead animals to study their muscles. He examined how light fell on folds of fabric, how rivers carved their paths through stone. To his fellow apprentices, these might have been exercises. To Leonardo, they were glimpses of hidden laws. But he also lived in a world where curiosity had limits. Question too deeply, and you risked accusations of impiety. The church, though a patron of art, watched carefully for those who strayed into forbidden knowledge. Already, Leonardo's notebooks show signs of caution, sketches that seem playful, yet carried deeper layers, as though he were testing how far he could go without drawing fire. His apprenticeship was not only about learning craft, it was about learning concealment. One can imagine the young Leonardo in Verrocchio's studio, mixing paints while listening to whispers of philosophy and gossip of patrons. Perhaps he watched his master conceal subtle allusions in his works, symbols meant only for those educated enough to recognize them. Perhaps he realized that this was the way forward, to paint beauty for the world, but to hide truth within it for the few who could see. This is why his apprenticeship can be seen not only as training, but as initiation. He entered as a boy with skill, but he left as a man who understood that art could be more than decoration. It could be a language of light and shadow, of gesture and symbol, of secrecy and revelation. By the time he completed his years under Verrocchio, Leonardo was no longer simply a promising painter. He was something more dangerous, an artist who knew how to hide messages in plain sight, who understood that every shadow could hold meaning, every detail could be a code. The boy from Vinci had entered the workshop as an apprentice. He emerged as a shadow maker, a painter of mysteries, and in the years to come, he would carry these lessons into works that would haunt the world for centuries. In the Renaissance, symbols were more than decoration. They were lifelines of communication in a world of secrets. To the untrained eye, a painting was simply a painting, a Madonna holding her child, a saint kneeling in prayer, a portrait of a nobleman. But to those who knew how to read, every flower, every gesture, every angle of light could whisper hidden meaning. In this atmosphere, Leonardo da Vinci became not just an artist, but a master of secret language. The Renaissance was obsessed with allegory. Knowledge was resurfacing from the ancient world, filtered through philosophy, alchemy, and mysticism. Greek and Roman texts were rediscovered, Hermetic writings circulated, and scholars whispered about geometry as the key to divine truth. Symbols became the bridge between visible art and invisible ideas. A lily could mean purity, a laurel crown victory, a triangle the Holy Trinity, or perhaps something more daring, something older, something the church would not approve. To place such a symbol in a painting was both bold and safe. Bold, because it whispered hidden philosophy. Safe, because only the educated few would recognize it. Leonardo thrived in this environment. His notebooks overflow not just with sketches of machines and bodies, but with curious emblems, diagrams of circles within circles, men stretched into geometrical shapes, plants drawn as if they were secret codes. He understood that symbols had the power to speak across time, to say what could not be said aloud. For him, art was not only beauty, it was a cipher. Consider the hand gestures that populate his paintings. In the Last Supper, the disciples' hands are not randomly placed. They point, they spread, they form subtle geometrical alignments. To some viewers, they suggest narrative emotion. To others, they signal a coded message, perhaps a silent debate about divinity itself. In paintings of John the Baptist, Leonardo places a single finger pointing upward, a gesture so simple, yet endlessly debated. Does it signal heaven? Hidden knowledge? A secret too vast for words? And then there are the landscapes. In the background of his portraits, rivers wind like veins across the earth. Mountains rise like ancient guardians. Bridges appear as though leading from one realm to another. These details were not filler. Leonardo painted slowly, deliberately. Each stone, each curve of water carried intention. Some scholars argue these landscapes may represent not real places, but allegorical maps, guides to a spiritual or philosophical journey. Even his use of light carried symbolic weight. The technique of sfumato, those smoky, blurred transitions between shadow and illumination, was more than artistry. It suggested mystery itself, the idea that truth is never sharp, never fully seen, always hovering between clarity and obscurity. To view a Leonardo painting was to be drawn into uncertainty, forced to search deeper. It was a symbolic gesture in itself, a reminder that reality is layered. Why did Leonardo cloak his work in this hidden language? The answer lies in the dangerous climate of his age. To openly question doctrine, to suggest that man was divine or that nature followed laws outside the church's control, could invite disaster. But symbols gave him freedom. They allowed him to weave radical ideas beneath the surface of beauty. To the casual viewer, his paintings satisfied religious and aesthetic expectations. To the attentive viewer, they whispered heresy, wonder, and possibility. Take, for example, the Vitruvian Man. At first, it is a study of anatomy, a man inscribed within a circle and a square. But symbolically, it is far more. It places man at the center of the universe, embodying divine proportion, suggesting humanity itself is a reflection of the cosmos. This was not just science. It was philosophy disguised as geometry, a secret declaration that man was more than a sinner in need of salvation. Man was a mirror of the divine order. Symbols also allowed Leonardo to create dual meanings, one for the patron, another for himself. A painting might satisfy the commission of a duke or a monastery, but within it, Leonardo could embed private meditations, secret jokes, or dangerous truths. It was a double conversation, one in plain sight, one hidden. The very act of hiding meaning may have given him a thrill, a sense that his art would outlast the eyes of his own time, waiting for someone centuries later to decode. And indeed, that is what has happened. For centuries, scholars, theorists, and dreamers have pored over his works, searching for what he may have hidden. Each detail becomes a riddle. Was the Mona Lisa's smile meant to symbolize harmony between reason and passion? Do the patterns in the Last Supper conceal sacred geometry? Did his sketches of knots and spirals echo the secret writings of alchemists? We may never know for certain, but the fact that we continue to search proves that Leonardo succeeded. He made his art a living code. Symbols were Leonardo's armor and his weapon. They protected him from the flames of censorship, but they also allowed him to strike at the heart of mystery. They turned his paintings into living puzzles, works that could never be finished because they would never be fully explained. In learning to read Leonardo's symbolic language, we begin to realize that his art was not passive beauty. It was active conversation, a dialogue across centuries. Each symbol is a thread, and when we follow them, they lead us deeper into a labyrinth of meaning where science, faith, philosophy, and imagination intertwine. To step into Leonardo's world is to step into this labyrinth where nothing is quite what it seems. And at the center of that labyrinth lies the ultimate question. Did Leonardo truly hide messages in his art, or have we become so enchanted by his genius that we cannot help but search for secrets that may not exist? Either way, the answer is the same. The power of his symbols is real. For whether or not they carry hidden heresy, they have succeeded in making us look closer, think harder, and wonder endlessly. That, perhaps, was Leonardo's greatest code of all. Few images in human history are as instantly recognizable as the Vitruvian Man, a figure both vulnerable and eternal, naked yet transcendent, stretched between geometry and flesh. At first glance, it seems simple, a sketch of a man inscribed within a circle and a square. But the moment one lingers, the questions begin to multiply. Why did Leonardo draw this? What does it mean? And what secrets hide within those perfect proportions? The drawing was inspired by Vitruvius, an ancient Roman architect who claimed that the human body was the model of perfection. According to Vitruvius, if you extended your arms, your wingspan equaled your height. The navel marked the center of circle. The body, inscribed, was a symbol of cosmic harmony. Leonardo took this dusty Roman idea and transformed it into something alive. He did not merely copy the proportions. He infused them with philosophy, geometry, mysticism, and a vision of mankind that was radical for its time. At its core, the Vitruvian Man is about balance. The square and the circle were not arbitrary. The square represented the material world, earth, matter, physical boundaries. The circle was divine, heaven, eternity, infinity. To place a human within both was to suggest something extraordinary. That man himself was the meeting point of heaven and earth. The body was not shameful, not merely mortal, but a bridge between realms. For Renaissance thinkers, this was dangerous territory. The Church preached humility, man as a fallen creature in need of salvation. But Leonardo's Vitruvian Man whispered another truth. Man was divine geometry embodied. His proportions were not accidental. They were deliberate, designed, sacred. To study the human body was to study God's architecture. Such a claim, if spoken aloud, might have been heresy. Drawn on paper, disguised as scientific study, it was genius. Look closer at the drawing, and new layers emerge. The man has two superimposed positions, arms outstretched in one, lifted in another, legs together in one, spread in another. It is as though he is moving, caught between stillness and motion. This duality is not accidental. It suggests that man is not static but dynamic, able to expand beyond the boundaries of matter into the infinite. It is a statement of potential, transformation, transcendence. But there are deeper mysteries. Some scholars have argued that Leonardo embedded secret ratios in the drawing. Ratios connected to the golden section, the mathematical key to beauty and harmony. This ratio appears in nature, in shells, in plants, in galaxies. To encode it in the human body was to suggest that man and the cosmos shared a blueprint. Others suggest the placement of the figure reveals knowledge of esoteric traditions, Hermetic writings that spoke of man as a microcosm of the universe. If so, Leonardo was not merely illustrating anatomy. He was illustrating philosophy that traced back to Egypt, to Greece, to hidden schools of wisdom. And what are the circle and square themselves? To many, they symbolize the eternal struggle between spirit and matter. The circle is perfect, endless, without beginning or end. The square is finite, grounded, bound by corners. By placing man within both, Leonardo may have been stating that our destiny is to reconcile opposites, to live both in the physical world and the realm of eternity. This is not merely science, it is metaphysics. It is a symbol of humanity's place in the cosmos. Yet the Vitruvian Man also carries a quieter, more personal mystery. Leonardo drew it not for public display, but for his private notebooks. It was not a commission, not for a patron. It was for himself. Why? Perhaps because in this figure he condensed his entire worldview. The fusion of art and science, body and soul, reason and wonder. It was a manifesto disguised as a sketch. There are even whispers that the figure may not be entirely anonymous. Some argue that the face resembles Leonardo himself, that the Vitruvian Man is a self-portrait, a declaration of his belief that his own body, like all bodies, reflected divine order. If true, then this sketch becomes a bold act of self-affirmation, an artist declaring that within himself lies the architecture of the universe. And yet, Leonardo left us no explanation, no note, no commentary, only the image. It is as though he wanted us to wonder, to puzzle, to project. In that silence lies the drawing's power. Every generation has found new meaning in it, a study of anatomy, a blueprint of beauty, a mystical diagram, a secular declaration of man's importance. Perhaps it is all of these at once. Perhaps that is the point. What makes the Vitruvian Man mysterious is not that it hides one definitive code, but that it opens an infinite number of interpretations. It is both exact and elusive, precise yet mysterious. In that sense, it mirrors Leonardo himself, scientist and dreamer, rationalist and mystic, bound to the earth yet obsessed with flight. Imagine Leonardo, late at night, quill in hand, bent over his notebook. He draws the figure, calculating proportions, testing geometry. And then he stops. He steps back. He looks. In that moment, perhaps he saw more than a study. Perhaps he saw a revelation, that humanity itself is a reflection of the universe, that to know the body is to know the stars, that in our very flesh lies the key to existence. The Vitruvian Man is not just a drawing. It is a doorway. To step through it is to step into Leonardo's mind, to glimpse the secret marriage of art, science, and spirituality that defined his vision. And like the man himself, it leaves us suspended between answers and questions, caught forever in wonder. And so, we are left with a tantalizing thought. If Leonardo could encode such profound philosophy into a single drawing, what else might he have hidden in his paintings, his notebooks, his inventions? What other secrets wait in plain sight, waiting for us to see not with our eyes, but with our imagination? Few works of art have provoked as much speculation, admiration, and controversy as Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper. Painted on the wall of a Milanese convent dining hall between 1495 and 1498, it was intended to be a devotional image, a simple reminder for the Dominican friars of Christ's final meal with his disciples. Yet in Leonardo's hands, this familiar scene became something else entirely, a puzzle, a drama, a coded message that continues to ignite debate more than 5 centuries later. At first glance, the painting appears straightforward. Christ at the center, his 12 disciples arranged in 4 groups of 3, reacting to his shocking revelation that one of them will betray him. But almost immediately, questions arise. Why is Christ's figure calm, geometric, serene, while chaos erupts around him? Why are the disciples' hands positioned with such deliberate precision? And why does Leonardo's composition seem to hide more than it reveals? The very structure of the painting invites speculation. Christ is placed at the center of a perfect triangle, his form echoing the geometry of stability and divinity. Behind him, a window frames his head like a halo of light, suggesting transcendence. Yet he is also painted lower than one might expect, almost blending into the human drama around him. It is as though Leonardo wanted us to see him not only as divine, but also as deeply human. Then there's the most famous mystery of all, the figure seated at Christ's right hand. Traditionally identified as the Apostle John, this figure has been the subject of endless debate. With delicate features, flowing hair, and an almost feminine grace, some have speculated it is not John at all, but Mary Magdalene, the secret companion of Christ, hidden in plain sight. This theory, popularized in modern times, has roots in older traditions that linked Magdalene to hidden knowledge suppressed by the Church. Whether Leonardo intended this reading or not, the ambiguity is undeniable, and it is precisely that ambiguity which fuels the mystery. But the secrets of the Last Supper extend far beyond one figure. Look at the spaces between the disciples. Christ's body and the figure to his right form a sharp V shape, a void that some claim represents a chalice, the Grail itself. To others, it symbolizes absence, loss, or the gap between the human and divine. And then there is the table, laden with food, bread, and wine, arranged with an order that seems almost mathematical. Were these placements symbolic? Did Leonardo hide ratios, geometries, or codes in the banquet itself? The gestures of the disciples only deepen the enigma. Each one reacts differently: shock, denial, anger, confusion. Their hands stretch outward, upward, toward each other, toward Christ, toward the table. Some gestures form parallel lines, others intersect, creating patterns that appear almost like constellations. Were these merely artistic choices or intentional alignments meant to convey hidden meaning? Some researchers believe the hand placements correspond to notes on a musical scale, suggesting Leonardo embedded a secret melody within the painting. Others see Masonic symbols or echoes of alchemical diagrams. Even the background holds mysteries. Behind the figures are 3 windows, through which a serene landscape stretches into infinity. These are not random details. For Leonardo, landscapes were never decoration. They carried symbolic weight. The distant horizon may suggest eternity, the eternal kingdom awaiting beyond betrayal and death. The 3 windows may echo the Holy Trinity, or perhaps hint at something less orthodox, some philosophical triad known only to Leonardo's inner circle. The technical aspects of the painting also add layers of intrigue. Leonardo experimented with a new technique, painting on dry plaster rather than wet, hoping to achieve greater detail. But this choice caused the work to deteriorate rapidly, fading and flaking within decades. Was this fragility intentional? Did Leonardo know the painting would decay, leaving only fragments for future generations to puzzle over, like a riddle half erased? Or was it the price of his relentless pursuit of innovation? To view the Last Supper today is to view a ghost of its original self. And yet, even in its damaged state, its power persists. The gaps, the missing pieces, may even amplify the mystery, inviting us to imagine what once was, to search for secrets that may have vanished. Perhaps Leonardo anticipated this, that the absence itself would become part of the code. But why would Leonardo hide secrets here at all? Consider the context. He was painting in Milan, at the court of Ludovico Sforza, a place where politics, religion, and power intertwined dangerously. To express radical ideas openly could mean ruin, but to embed them in a sacred painting? That was safe. The friars saw devotion, the patrons saw genius, but the attentive could glimpse something more. And perhaps that is the greatest secret of the Last Supper. It operates on 2 levels. On the surface, it is a masterpiece of religious art, capturing the emotional tension of betrayal. Beneath the surface, it may be a philosophical statement, a coded message, a reflection of Leonardo's belief that truth is always layered, never simple, always hidden in plain sight. We may never know what Leonardo intended. Did he truly mean to suggest Mary Magdalene sat at Christ's side? Did he weave musical notes into the hands of the disciples? Did he hide sacred geometry in the bread and wine? Or are these interpretations the product of our own hunger for mystery, projected onto the work of a genius who delighted in ambiguity? What is certain is this: the Last Supper refuses to be solved. Like Leonardo himself, it resists final interpretation. It demands that we keep looking, keep questioning, keep doubting. It is not an answer, but an invitation, a banquet not of food, but of secrets. And if this single painting can contain such depth, such mystery, then one cannot help but wonder, what other works of Leonardo hold similar codes? What other masterpieces whisper secrets beneath their brushstrokes, waiting for us to see what the surface hides? Few faces in art, or in history itself, have been studied, obsessed over, and mythologized as much as the woman we call the Mona Lisa. At first, she appears serene, calm, almost ordinary, yet the longer one gazes, the more unsettling the experience becomes. Her smile shifts with the light, sometimes soft, sometimes sly, sometimes vanishing altogether. Her eyes seem to follow the viewer, both inviting and withholding. She is at once present and elusive, alive and untouchable. What secret did Leonardo da Vinci embed within this portrait that makes it the most famous painting on Earth? The painting was begun around 1503 in Florence, though Leonardo carried it with him for years, never parting with it, never delivering it to the patron who commissioned it. This fact alone is striking. Most Renaissance portraits were transactional. A patron paid, an artist painted, the work was delivered. But Leonardo kept the Mona Lisa until his death, carrying her to France, where she eventually entered the collection of King Francis I. Why? Did he see in her something beyond a commission? Something personal, something coded, something unfinished in spirit, even if finished in paint? Her identity remains one of the central mysteries. The most accepted theory is that she is Lisa Gherardini, wife of Florentine merchant Francesco del Giocondo. But other possibilities have been proposed: a courtesan, an idealized figure, even a disguised self-portrait of Leonardo himself. The uncertainty has only fueled the fascination. If she is Lisa, why elevate her to such enigmatic perfection? If she is not, then who is she? And why did Leonardo choose to immortalize her in such a haunting way? The smile itself is the heart of the enigma. Modern science has attempted to unravel it with eye-tracking experiments and digital analysis. The secret lies in Leonardo's mastery of sfumato, his technique of blending tones so subtly that edges dissolve into shadow. When one looks directly at her mouth, the smile seems faint, almost gone. But when viewed peripherally, it blossoms, playful and alive. This shifting illusion engages the viewer's perception itself, making the painting interactive, alive, ever-changing. It is as if the Mona Lisa herself decides what face to show you, depending on how you look. But the smile carries symbolic weight too. Some scholars see it as the embodiment of harmony, the balance of opposites, joy and sorrow, presence and absence, body and spirit. Others claim it represents Leonardo's fascination with the mysterious connection between the soul and the body, that moment where emotion flickers on the lips, revealing the inner life. It is not just a smile, it is a question painted on a face. Her eyes add to the mystery. They follow the viewer no matter where one stands, a trick of perspective and shading that gives her an uncanny vitality. But beyond the optical illusion, there is something unsettling in their gaze. They are calm yet knowing, soft yet penetrating. Some have suggested they carry Leonardo's own unspoken thoughts, a mirror of his mind staring back at us across the centuries. And then there is the landscape behind her. At first, it seems like a natural setting: rivers, winding roads, distant mountains. But closer inspection reveals impossibility. The left and right sides of the background do not align, as though they belong to two different worlds stitched together. One side is calm and fertile, the other wild and untamed. This duality may not be accident. It may symbolize the dual nature of existence: order and chaos, civilization and wilderness, reason and mystery. To place the Mona Lisa between them is to suggest she herself is the bridge, the mediator between opposites. Hidden details deepen the riddle. In 2005, researchers claimed to find tiny letters and numbers painted in her eyes, visible only under magnification. Were these mere cracks in the paint, or intentional codes left by Leonardo? The discovery sparked speculation. Perhaps initials, perhaps dates, perhaps secret messages meant for those who would one day look closely enough. Whether intentional or imagined, the very possibility that Leonardo might have embedded micro-secrets adds yet another layer of intrigue. But beyond technique, beyond hidden codes, there's something else, something almost mystical. The Mona Lisa does not look like a portrait of a single woman. She looks like an archetype, an ideal. Some argue she embodies Leonardo's concept of universal beauty, blending masculine and feminine features, mortal and divine qualities. To this view, she is less a person than an idea, the human soul made visible in paint. This interpretation aligns with Leonardo's lifelong obsession with dualities and harmonies. The Mona Lisa may be his attempt to paint balance itself, the fusion of opposites into a single enigmatic form. If so, then her smile is the smile of wisdom, of mystery, of a secret too vast for words. Her enduring power may also lie in what she withholds. Unlike most portraits of her time, she wears no jewelry, no obvious symbols of wealth or status. She reveals nothing of her story, her identity, her role. She is stripped of all context, reduced to a face, a gaze, a smile. In that silence, we are forced to bring ourselves to her. We project our own meanings, our own questions. She becomes a mirror of our imagination. And perhaps this is why Leonardo kept her, why he carried her with him across years and countries. Perhaps she was not simply a commission, but a companion, a canvas into which he poured his philosophy, his secrets, his very self. She was unfinished not in paint, but in purpose, because her purpose was to live beyond him, to whisper across centuries, to remain unsolved. The Mona Lisa is more than the most famous painting in the world. She is a mystery disguised as a portrait, a riddle posed in oil and shadow. She is a reminder that truth is not always something to be explained, but something to be felt, intuited, wondered at. Leonardo gave us not an answer, but a smile that refuses to yield its secret. And so, the question remains, what exactly is she smiling at? At her sitter's secret? At Leonardo's hidden code? At our endless attempts to solve her? Or perhaps at the eternal joke, that the greatest masterpiece of all time is not the painting itself, but the mystery it creates in the minds of those who look at her. Leonardo da Vinci's obsession with the human body bordered on the obsessive, even the forbidden. While his contemporaries painted saints and kings, he slipped into morgues and hospitals under the cover of night, dissecting corpses with the hunger of a man convinced that the flesh itself held the secrets of the universe. To him, the human body was not a prison for the soul, as many churchmen preached. It was a cathedral of divine architecture, a map drawn by the hand of God. And if he could decode that map, he believed he might glimpse the ultimate truth of creation. His anatomical sketches remain among the most detailed, precise, and haunting ever created. In one, the muscles of a shoulder peel back like the gears of a machine. In another, a fetus floats within a womb, drawn with tenderness and eerie accuracy centuries before modern science. Veins, bones, organs. No part of the body was too sacred or too grotesque to be studied. Each line of ink was both science and reverence, an act of devotion disguised as dissection. But Leonardo's anatomical studies were more than medical science. They were symbolic, coded with meaning. He drew the heart not only as a pump of blood, but as the seat of emotion, the engine of life itself. He sketched the branching of veins like rivers on a map, echoing the landscapes he painted. To him, the human body was a microcosm of the world. Arteries were rivers, bones were mountains, muscles were ropes of tension that mirrored the mechanics of machines. The same laws governed both man and nature, both the body and the cosmos. In this vision lay danger. For if man was a reflection of the universe, if the body itself contained divine geometry, then what need was there for the church to act as the gatekeeper of salvation? To dissect was to question dogma. To draw was to declare that truth could be found not only in Scripture, but in sinew. This was radical, even heretical, which may explain why Leonardo kept many of his anatomical studies private, hidden in notebooks, never published in his lifetime. They were too revealing, too dangerous, too ahead of their age. There's also mystery in what he chose to emphasize. He lingered over the mechanics of the eye, sketching lenses, retinas, light rays bending as if by divine design. To Leonardo, vision itself was sacred, the bridge between the external world and the inner soul. He studied the brain, tracing the paths of nerves, trying to locate the seat of thought, of imagination, of spirit. Was he seeking not just the structure of the body, but the location of the soul itself? Some scholars suggest that Leonardo's dissections were as much spiritual as scientific. He described the body in terms borrowed from architecture, the ribs as vaults, the spine as a column, the chest as a great hall. To cut open a body was, for him, to enter a temple. And like a temple, the body concealed mysteries, chambers within chambers, hidden designs, patterns invisible until revealed by careful hands. But what secrets did he find? There are whispers that Leonardo discovered things centuries before their time. The circulation of blood, the function of the heart's valves, the mechanics of breathing. If true, he unlocked truths that would not be publicly acknowledged until long after his death. Yet he left them hidden, written backwards in his mirrored script, buried in notebooks that only centuries later would be fully studied. Why? Was he protecting himself from persecution? Or was he protecting humanity from knowledge it was not yet ready to bear? There is also a haunting quality to his anatomical drawings. Unlike dry medical diagrams, his sketches seem alive, almost mournful. The dead he studied are preserved in his lines, their bodies resurrected as eternal images. In one drawing, the curled fetus is rendered with such delicacy it feels more like a meditation on life itself than a scientific study. In another, the gnarled body of an old man is depicted with a sorrowful dignity. Leonardo was not cold or clinical. He was reverent. In studying the body, he was not merely dissecting. It was as if he were listening, trying to hear the voice of creation speaking through flesh. And perhaps he did. For within his anatomy lies a truth that has shaped centuries of thought, that man is not separate from nature, but part of it, that the body is not base, but divine, that the study of ourselves is the study of the universe. These were dangerous ideas in his time, but they are truths we now take for granted. Leonardo was centuries ahead, peering through the veil, seeing secrets long before others dared to look. The anatomy of Leonardo's notebooks is therefore not just medical history. It is a symbolic map, a code of how he saw the world. Body, machine, cosmos, all bound by the same laws, all reflecting each other in endless mirrors. To unravel these drawings is to glimpse Leonardo's greatest secret, that truth is not divided into art, science, and faith. Truth is one, and it beats within the human body as surely as it shines in the stars. And so we are left with a question. When Leonardo opened the body with his scalpel and his pen, did he discover only bones and organs? Or did he discover something more? Did he find, in the silent chambers of flesh, the hidden symbols of creation itself? Leonardo da Vinci's art is not only a feast for the eyes, it is a puzzle for the mind. Beneath the brushstrokes, beneath the soft sfumato and lifelike gestures, lies something invisible to the casual viewer: geometry. For Leonardo, geometry was not an abstract science. It was the skeleton of existence, the secret order binding the universe together. Circles, triangles, spirals. These are not simply shapes but keys, and Leonardo embedded them everywhere, like codes waiting to be unlocked. The Renaissance adored geometry, seeing it as sacred. Scholars traced it back to Pythagoras, who taught that numbers were divine, and to Plato, who claimed that geometry was the very language of creation. To draw a circle was to echo eternity. To draw a triangle was to summon balance. Leonardo absorbed these ideas not as superstition, but as truth, blending them seamlessly into his art. To him, beauty was never arbitrary. It was geometry made visible. Take the Last Supper. At first glance, it is a dramatic scene of Christ and his disciples. But look closer, and geometry emerges. Christ's figure forms a perfect equilateral triangle, the symbol of harmony and the Trinity. The entire composition, when mapped, reveals strict proportional divisions, as though the scene was built like a cathedral, each group of disciples aligned within invisible geometrical frameworks. Even the vanishing point at Christ's head anchors the entire perspective with mathematical precision, making him both the literal and symbolic center of the universe. Or consider the Mona Lisa. Her smile may haunt us, but her proportions are no accident. Scholars have overlaid golden rectangles and spirals upon the painting, finding that her face, hands, and the background landscape align with the golden ratio, the mysterious mathematical proportion that appears in seashells, galaxies, and even DNA. Was Leonardo consciously embedding these ratios, or did his instinct for harmony simply reflect a universal law? Either way, the result is the same. The painting feels alive, balanced, hypnotic because it resonates with geometry itself. Leonardo's fascination went deeper still. His notebooks are filled with studies of polyhedra, complex three-dimensional forms, some with dozens of sides, drawn with crystalline precision. He collaborated with the mathematician Luca Pacioli on the Divina Proportion, a book that explored the sacred geometry of the golden ratio. In Leonardo's illustrations, shapes become holy objects, glowing like relics, as if to suggest that mathematics itself was a form of prayer. But why hide geometry in his art? Because geometry was not merely mathematics, it was philosophy in disguise. In placing a triangle around Christ, or inscribing a body within a circle, Leonardo was not decorating. He was declaring, the world is ordered, creation is structured, and truth lies in proportion. For a man living under the shadow of a powerful church, this was a bold statement. To suggest that divine harmony could be understood through human reason, that God's design could be revealed by compass and ruler, was revolutionary. Some even suggest Leonardo used geometry as a form of encryption. Triangles, circles, and proportions may have been codes, communicating ideas to those who could read them. A disciple's gesture forming a hidden angle, a window aligned to a golden rectangle, a horizon curving in a spiral. These could carry secret meanings invisible to all but the initiated. Was Leonardo speaking to a hidden audience across time, encoding truths for those who would one day understand? There are theories, too, that Leonardo embedded celestial geometry, alignments reflecting the stars and planets. Certain paintings, when mapped, seem to echo constellations, as though the figures on Earth were mirroring the heavens above. If true, Leonardo's art was not only geometry, but astrology, binding human stories to cosmic patterns. And yet, Leonardo never explained. He left no guide, no key, no confession of intent. He let the geometry speak in silence, hidden beneath beauty, waiting for eyes sharp enough to see. This silence fuels the mystery. Did he deliberately encode sacred proportions, or did his genius simply make harmony inevitable? The line between intention and instinct blurs, as it always does with Leonardo. What cannot be denied is the effect. His works mesmerize because they feel inevitable, as if they could exist no other way. The eye is guided, the mind is soothed, the soul is stirred, all because of an invisible architecture of lines and ratios. We sense the order even when we cannot name it. That is the magic of hidden geometry. It works whether we see it or not. But there is another layer still. Geometry, for Leonardo, was not just a tool for beauty. It was a symbol of mystery. A circle may represent eternity, but it also represents the impossibility of perfection. A spiral suggests infinity, but also endless searching. By embedding these shapes, Leonardo may have been hinting at the greatest truth of all, that harmony exists, but it can never be fully grasped. The universe is ordered, but its order is always just beyond reach. Thus, in Leonardo's hands, geometry becomes more than mathematics. It becomes metaphor. His art is not merely seen, but decoded, not merely admired, but read. Each line is a whisper, each ratio a clue, each hidden shape a reminder that truth lies beneath the surface. And so we are left with a tantalizing thought. If geometry was Leonardo's secret language, then every painting, every sketch, every notebook may be a page of a greater code. A code that links art to science, man to cosmos, the visible to the invisible. A code that suggests the universe itself is written in shapes, and Leonardo, more than anyone else of his age, knew how to read it. Leonardo da Vinci painted with light, but his secrets often dwell in shadow. To the casual viewer, his works are luminous masterpieces, yet when the eye lingers on the darker corners, beneath a fold of cloth, behind a window arch, in the dim recess of a background, strange patterns emerge. It is here, in the places most overlooked, that whispers of hidden codes seem to hide, like secrets deliberately veiled in half-light. Throughout history, viewers have felt that Leonardo's paintings contain more than met the eye. There is something unsettling about how a shadow seems too deliberate, too carefully shaped, as if it masks a symbol meant only for those who dare to look longer. Renaissance art was rich with symbolism, but Leonardo's choices feel less like tradition and more like encryption. He was, after all, a man who wrote backward in mirror script, a man who kept his notebooks locked with riddles of his own design. Would such a man leave his paintings unguarded, their meanings too easily read? Take the Last Supper. Most eyes are drawn to Christ at the center, framed by light. Yet notice the shadows stretching behind the disciples. The negative space between them forms suggestive patterns, angles that resemble letters, shapes that echo triangles and chalices. Some art historians argue this is coincidence, but others see intention. Leonardo embedding messages in the very gaps between bodies, making absence as meaningful as presence. In this sense, shadow becomes a language, a hidden script running alongside the visible narrative. Or consider the Virgin of the Rocks. The entire scene is cloaked in shadow, a grotto of darkness where the Virgin, the infant Christ, and an angel gather. Why choose such a gloomy setting for a sacred subject? Within the shadows of the rocks, scholars have traced faint outlines, suggestions of faces, demonic profiles, or geometric forms. Were these ghostly shapes accidents of texture, or deliberate codes hinting at themes of duality, of good and evil entwined? Some believe Leonardo may have been using chiaroscuro, his mastery of light and dark, not only for visual depth, but for symbolic concealment. Even the Mona Lisa, that queen of enigmas, holds secrets in her shadows. Infrared scans reveal layers beneath her painted surface, adjustments, hidden lines, and ghostly hands once drawn differently. Within the shadows of her veil and background, analysts claim to see initials, numbers, or even faint sketches of bridges and symbols. Whether real or imagined, the idea persists that Leonardo left us a shadow script, knowing future generations with sharper tools would eventually peel back the darkness to read what was hidden. Leonardo's notebooks give weight to this idea. He often used shading to disguise diagrams, layering sketches upon one another until one image seemed to vanish into another. To him, shadow was not absence, it was camouflage. He believed shadow gave form to reality, that without darkness, light could not be understood. If he thought this way in science, why not in art? Why not use shadow as a cloak for messages too dangerous to display openly? Some scholars link these shadows to esoteric traditions. In Hermetic thought, light symbolizes divine truth, while shadow symbolizes the hidden, the unspoken mysteries reserved for initiates. Could Leonardo have encoded not only geometry, but philosophy into his shadows? Perhaps the darkness in his paintings was more than atmospheric. It was allegorical, suggesting that knowledge is always partly hidden, that truth lives in the interplay between seen and unseen. This possibility grows more intriguing when we recall Leonardo's precarious position in Renaissance society. He lived under the watch of powerful patrons and an equally powerful church. To question doctrine openly could bring ruin. But what if he used shadows to cloak his doubts, his heresies, his insights? What if the darkness in his art is not just artistic but protective, allowing him to express forbidden thoughts while keeping them invisible to censors? Modern technology adds another twist. With infrared reflectography, ultraviolet scans, and digital enhancements, researchers have begun peeling away the layers of his work. Hidden sketches, ghostly underdrawings, even words faintly etched into the shadows have been discovered. Each revelation fuels the idea that Leonardo left breadcrumbs, hidden in plain sight, waiting for a future age to uncover. But there is also the danger of projection. Shadows invite imagination. The human brain seeks patterns where none exist. Are the supposed faces in Virgin of the Rocks truly deliberate? Or are we simply seeing what we long to find? Did Leonardo encode letters in the Last Supper? Or are they illusions shaped by chance? This ambiguity is perhaps Leonardo's greatest trick. By placing so much meaning in shadow, he ensured that his art would always haunt us with possibility. The effect is intoxicating. Shadows in Leonardo's work become mirrors of the human condition. We dwell partly in light, partly in darkness, always reaching for truths just beyond our grasp. His shadows feel alive, as though they are watching us, testing us, daring us to look deeper. They whisper, "There's more here, if only you dare to see." And so the mystery deepens. If light reveals and shadow conceals, then Leonardo's paintings are not static works of art. They're conversations between what is shown and what is hidden. The visible tells one story, the shadows tell another. Together, they form a code, a dialogue between surface and secret. The question remains, what precisely did Leonardo hide in these shadows? Messages to the future? Personal confessions? A map of knowledge too dangerous to declare? Perhaps we will never know. Yet the suspicion alone keeps us returning, keeps us staring into the dim places of his canvases, convinced that if we look just a little longer, the shadows will finally speak. Among all the sketches Leonardo da Vinci left behind, none is more iconic or more mysterious than the Vitruvian Man. A simple drawing, ink on paper, it shows a man standing with arms and legs outstretched, inscribed within both a circle and a square. At first glance, it appears almost clinical, a study of proportion. But to those who linger, it begins to feel like something else entirely, a map of the universe hidden in the human form. The drawing takes its name from Vitruvius, an ancient Roman architect whose writings obsessed Renaissance thinkers. Vitruvius believed that the ideal proportions of the human body were a mirror of the cosmos, that by studying man, one could understand creation itself. Leonardo took this idea further. His Vitruvian Man is not merely a copy of Vitruvius's text. It is an interpretation, an innovation, and perhaps even a coded statement of belief. Look closely. The figure is doubled, his limbs spread in two overlapping positions, as if the man is moving within stillness. The square anchors him to the earth, to the material world, while the circle elevates him to the heavens, to the realm of the divine. This dual placement is not arbitrary. It echoes Hermetic philosophy, the ancient teaching that man is both earthly and celestial, a bridge between body and spirit. In one image, Leonardo condensed the Renaissance dream, that humanity could grasp both science and spirituality, flesh and soul, the finite and the infinite. But what makes the Vitruvian Man mysterious is not only what it shows, it is what it suggests. Scholars debate endlessly. Was Leonardo embedding sacred geometry here, hiding divine truths beneath lines of proportion? The square and circle themselves carry symbolic weight. In alchemy, the square represents matter, the four elements, the tangible world. The circle represents perfection, eternity, the spirit. To place man at the center of both is to declare that humanity itself is the measure of all things, a bold proclamation at a time when the Church insisted only God held that place. Some interpret the drawing as a hidden manifesto. By placing man at the intersection of cosmic shapes, Leonardo may have been declaring faith not in dogma, but in human reason. The body becomes scripture, the compass and ruler his rosary. If true, then Vitruvian Man was not a neutral study, but a quiet rebellion, an assertion that truth could be found not in sacred texts, but in flesh, bone, and proportion. Others see it as a key to hidden knowledge. The overlapping positions of the arms and legs, for instance, suggest movement, as though the figure is in two states at once. Could this be Leonardo hinting at duality or even transformation? Some occult scholars believe the image encodes the idea of ascension, that man can transcend his earthly square and enter the divine circle. In this reading, the Vitruvian Man becomes less a drawing than a ritual diagram, a map of spiritual evolution disguised as anatomy. There are practical enigmas too. Leonardo's notes around the figure detail proportions, but some don't quite match Vitruvius's original text. Did Leonardo deliberately alter them to encode his own system? If so, what hidden ratios did he discover? And why does the man's navel sit at the circle's center, when Vitruvius suggested it should be the genitals? Was Leonardo shifting the cosmic focus upward, from reproduction to nourishment, from lust to life? Each choice feels deliberate, a silent correction of ancient wisdom. The drawing also pulses with astronomical echoes. The circle suggests the sun, the square the earth. Placing man within both recalls Hermetic aphorisms like as above, so below, that the heavens and earth reflect one another. Did Leonardo intend the Vitruvian Man to be a cosmic mirror, showing humanity as a miniature universe, a microcosm echoing the macrocosm? If so, then this single sketch is more than anatomy. It is cosmology in disguise. Modern researchers have tried to decode it mathematically. Some claim the proportions correspond to the golden ratio, that hidden spirals can be traced within the figure. Others see star maps encoded, alignments that could connect the drawing to specific constellations. These theories remain speculative, yet the very possibility reveals how potent the image is. It invites mystery. It refuses to be exhausted by explanation. Perhaps the greatest enigma of the Vitruvian Man is its endurance. More than 5 centuries later, it still speaks to us, still feels alive. Why? Because it touches a universal hunger, the desire to believe that our bodies are not accidents, that we are inscribed with meaning, that we are more than dust. The square and circle whisper that we belong both to earth and to heaven, that we carry the cosmos within our skin. And yet, Leonardo himself left no commentary explaining its deeper meaning. Was he merely illustrating Vitruvius? Was he experimenting with ratios? Or was he, as so many believe, embedding a secret manifesto in ink, a statement too radical to voice aloud? His silence forces us to wonder, to imagine, to search. The absence of explanation becomes part of the mystery. What cannot be denied is the sense of awe it inspires. To gaze at the Vitruvian Man is to feel part of something vast, to glimpse harmony hidden in flesh and bone. It is science and art, reason and faith, bound in a single form. It is a riddle drawn on paper, a code that refuses to be fully solved. In the end, perhaps that is the point. The Vitruvian Man is not a solution. It is an invitation to keep searching, to keep bridging the circle and square, heaven and earth, mystery and reason. Leonardo, ever the trickster, leaves us poised between answers and questions, caught forever in the same suspended movement as the man in the drawing. Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper is more than a painting. It is a story, a drama, and, some argue, a code waiting to be cracked. To the casual observer, it depicts the moment Jesus reveals that one of his disciples will betray him. The expressions of the apostles are masterfully rendered: shock, denial, anger, fear. But beneath this emotional tableau, scholars have long suspected Leonardo hid deeper messages, encoded in gestures, placement, and geometry. The first clue lies in the composition itself. Christ sits at the exact center, framed by a triangular shape that seems to radiate stability and divinity. Yet the disciples are not merely reacting at random. Each group of three forms its own dynamic pattern: their hands, arms, and gazes creating invisible lines that lead the viewer's eye to Christ repeatedly. Some researchers argue that these arrangements are more than artistic technique. They may represent a hidden musical score, each gesture a note, each grouping a chord. If true, Leonardo may have encoded a symphony in paint, audible only to the mind's eye. Then there is the question of Mary Magdalene. The figure to Christ's right, traditionally identified as John, has features that seem unervingly feminine. Long flowing hair, delicate hands, soft facial features. Could this be a deliberate placement by Leonardo to hint at a secret role for Mary Magdalene, a companion not officially recorded in Scripture? While the idea is controversial, it aligns with the Renaissance fascination with hidden wisdom and esoteric truths. Leonardo's patrons may have commissioned religious art, but Leonardo, ever the intellectual provocateur, could have inserted subtle challenges to orthodoxy within it. The table itself may also contain secrets. Scholars have analyzed the placement of bread and wine, claiming that the arrangement is not accidental. Some see symbolic representations of the Holy Grail. Others believe the food echoes sacred numerology, 12 loaves for 12 disciples, perhaps, or subtle triangular arrangements reinforcing geometric symbolism. Even the hands of the apostles seem calculated, forming intersecting lines that may align with mathematical ratios known only to Leonardo and his inner circle. Shadows, too, play a mysterious role. The fresco's deteriorated condition obscures details, yet infrared scans reveal faint underdrawings, adjustments, erased lines, and altered gestures that suggest Leonardo experimented with hidden patterns. Could these underdrawings contain codes lost to time, messages meant to be discovered only by those patient enough to probe beneath the surface? Leonardo's known habit of hiding meaning in sketches and notebooks lends weight to this idea. Beyond the technical and symbolic elements, the painting's very context hints at secrecy. Painted for the refectory of Santa Maria del Grazie in Milan, the work existed within a nexus of power: the Sforza court, the church, and intellectual circles. Ideas of humanism, philosophy, and science intermingled, often in tension with religious orthodoxy. Leonardo's genius was not limited to depiction. He navigated these social currents, embedding messages that might communicate ideas too radical to speak aloud. Consider the perspective. Christ's head sits precisely at the vanishing point, a subtle insistence that he is the focal axis of the world. But the symmetry is broken in deliberate ways: the spacing of figures, the angles of the table, the gestures of hands. Some argue these breaks encode letters, symbols, or numeric values. Others see alignments with stars or cosmic patterns, hinting at Leonardo's fascination with astronomy and the universe's hidden order. Even small details provoke speculation. The spilled salt, the knife angled sharply, the way shadows fall across hands and faces. These could be symbolic, warnings, or clues to a deeper narrative. In the Renaissance, such elements were often layered with meaning, understood by an educated few, invisible to the masses. Leonardo, with his meticulous mind, would have relished the opportunity to insert multiple layers of understanding in a single composition. The cumulative effect is staggering. The Last Supper is both a biblical narrative and a multidimensional code. It operates on a visible level, capturing raw human emotion, while simultaneously hinting at geometry, numerology, hidden symbology, and perhaps even secret histories. Leonardo's genius lies in this duality. The painting can be appreciated aesthetically by any viewer, yet rewards deeper study with enigmatic revelations. Modern technology has only deepened the intrigue. High-resolution scans, infrared imaging, and digital reconstruction reveal traces of Leonardo's hand that were invisible to previous generations. Subtle alterations erase lines, and faint markings suggest that every element was considered for more than its visual effect. Leonardo's work seems designed to reward curiosity, inviting each generation to decode secrets that may never be fully understood. Ultimately, The Last Supper poses a profound question. What was Leonardo trying to convey beyond the story of betrayal? Was he hinting at suppressed truths, secret histories, or hidden spiritual knowledge? Or was the code itself the message, a reflection of life's mysteries, layered and elusive, impossible to fully decipher? The ambiguity is part of its power, keeping viewers returning, examining, and wondering centuries after it was painted. And so, the painting becomes more than art. It is a dialogue across time. Leonardo's brush speaks to us in gestures, shadows, and geometric lines, challenging us to look closer, think deeper, and question what we take for granted. Every detail matters, every shadow whispers. And in that space between the visible and the hidden, the genius of Leonardo's mind still reaches across centuries, leaving a trail of secrets for those daring enough to follow. Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks are perhaps the most tantalizing window into his mind, a labyrinth of sketches, diagrams, and notes written in his famously backward mirror script. Unlike most artists of his time, Leonardo did not merely record ideas. He encoded them, weaving together art, science, philosophy, and invention in ways that seem almost conspiratorial. To leaf through his codices is to step into a mind that refuses simple categorization. Part genius, part alchemist, part secret keeper. The Codex Atlanticus, the largest of his surviving collections, spans hundreds of pages, covering everything from flying machines to hydraulic studies, from anatomy to mathematical musings. Each page is densely packed, every margin filled with sketches and calculations, as though Leonardo were determined to leave no thought unrecorded. Yet the overwhelming density hides a more intriguing feature. The notebooks were never meant to be read casually. Many of his writings are in mirrored handwriting, legible only when reflected in a mirror. Some pages contain images that appear normal at first glance, but reveal hidden diagrams when illuminated from different angles. Every page feels like a secret waiting to be decoded. Why did Leonardo encrypt his work? Some scholars suggest pragmatism. He feared intellectual theft. Ideas like flying machines or mechanical devices were revolutionary, and in Renaissance Italy, competition could be deadly. But there is another, more compelling possibility. Leonardo was a man obsessed with secrecy itself. He understood the power of knowledge and the danger of its misuse. By encoding his thoughts, he created a private universe within his codices, a sanctuary for ideas too radical, too dangerous, or too advanced for his contemporaries. The content of the notebooks is staggering in scope. Leonardo recorded intricate studies of the human body, showing the muscles, tendons, and organs in unprecedented detail. He drew the heart, predicting blood circulation centuries before it was formally recognized. He sketched designs for helicopters, tanks, and bridges, visions of machines far ahead of his time. Yet interwoven with these practical studies are enigmatic symbols and cryptic annotations, hints of a hidden philosophy. Pages devoted to the flight of birds and the flow of water suggest that Leonardo saw the universe as a dynamic interplay of forces, patterns, and rhythms, an interconnected web where observation leads to profound insight. Among the most mysterious aspects of the codices are the layers of meaning Leonardo embedded within his drawings. Take his anatomical sketches. Bones, veins, and organs are drawn with scientific precision, but hidden in the margins or within subtle exaggerations are symbols, geometric patterns, and ratios that hint at a more philosophical reading. To Leonardo, understanding the human body was inseparable from understanding the cosmos. The microcosm of man mirrored the macrocosm of the universe, and his codices were the key to deciphering this correspondence. Leonardo also explored the hidden forces of nature. Pages are filled with observations of water currents, the flight of birds, the movement of clouds, and the rotation of the earth. In one remarkable diagram, he traces the flow of a river in meticulous detail, noting turbulence, eddies, and whirls, while on the margins he overlays spirals and ratios, suggesting a mathematical order behind apparent chaos. He saw patterns where others saw randomness, and he documented them in ways that remain partially inscrutable even today. Some codices appear deliberately fragmented, as if Leonardo intended them to be discovered only in pieces. The Codex Leicester, now owned by a private collector, contains hundreds of pages on water, astronomy, and geology, written in Leonardo's characteristic mirror script. The sequencing of ideas seems erratic, yet intentional, as if each observation was a clue in a broader puzzle. Researchers have suggested that the order of pages, the placement of diagrams, and the interactions between text and image may themselves encode hidden messages, messages only visible to those willing to decode the full system. Beyond science and art, the codices hint at philosophical and even mystical inquiry. Leonardo scribbles reflections on light and shadow, motion and time, the nature of perception, and a relationship between the visible and invisible. These notes suggest a mind grappling not only with the physical world, but with the metaphysical, seeking truths about existence, knowledge, and the hidden order of creation. Some pages even include cryptic symbols and letters that may reference esoteric traditions, from Hermeticism to Pythagorean numerology. It is this layering of knowledge, practical, philosophical, and secret, that makes Leonardo's codices extraordinary. They are at once instruction manuals, diaries, philosophical treatises, and encrypted messages. The more one studies them, the more the mind is drawn into Leonardo's pattern of thought, where nothing is isolated and every detail may hold significance. A sketch of a flying machine may reveal mathematical ratios. A study of water may hint at cosmic cycles. A figure of a hand may contain geometric codes. The codices are also a testament to Leonardo's foresight. Many of his predictions, flying machines, armored vehicles, solar power concepts, advanced hydraulics, were realized only centuries later. But he embedded these inventions within philosophical frameworks, suggesting that he viewed technology not as mere utility, but as a window into universal principles. Each machine is a reflection of nature's laws, each mechanical principle a clue to deeper understanding. Perhaps the most compelling aspect of Leonardo's notebooks is the invitation they extend to the observer. By encoding knowledge in layers of art, science, and symbol, Leonardo challenges us to think, to observe, to question. He forces us to acknowledge that the universe is more intricate than appearances suggest, and that understanding requires patience, insight, and curiosity. Ultimately, the codices are a key to Leonardo's mind, yet they're also a mirror for ours. They reveal that the boundary between genius and mystery is thin, that knowledge is as much about discovery as it is about secrecy, and that some truths are meant to be sought rather than fully grasped. Each page is a whisper across centuries, a coded invitation to peer deeper, question further, and marvel endlessly. And so the question remains, how many of Leonardo's secrets are hidden in these pages, waiting to be unlocked? How many remain invisible, lost in the centuries, or intentionally obscured, meant only for the eyes of those who dare to look? The codices are both a map and a maze, offering tantalizing glimpses of the mind of a man whose curiosity knew no bounds, whose secrecy protected the fragile threads of his extraordinary understanding. Leonardo da Vinci once wrote that shadow is the language of the eyes, and nowhere is this belief more evident than in his art. His mastery of light and shadow, chiaroscuro, was revolutionary, giving his paintings a lifelike depth that seemed almost supernatural. But Leonardo's fascination with light went beyond aesthetics. It was philosophical, scientific, and, some argue, a vehicle for hidden meaning. Every gradient, every subtle shift between brightness and darkness was deliberate, a tool to reveal truths and conceal secrets. Take the Mona Lisa. Her face emerges from darkness, yet no hard lines define her features. Leonardo blends skin and shadow seamlessly, so that the smile appears and disappears as if animated by the viewer's perception. This was no accident. Leonardo understood that light could manipulate how we perceive emotion and form. By controlling shadow, he controlled not just the image but the psychological effect on the observer, creating an intimate dialogue between the painting and its viewer. In The Last Supper, shadow performs a different function. It organizes the composition, directing attention toward Christ while simultaneously highlighting tension among the apostles. The folds of garments, the recesses behind figures, even the architecture of the room are manipulated through careful shading. Each shadow is calculated, forming invisible lines that connect hands, faces, and eyes, creating a network of focus that draws the observer deeper into the narrative. Some researchers suggest that Leonardo embedded geometric or symbolic codes within these shadows, turning them into carriers of hidden knowledge. Leonardo's obsession with shadow extended beyond human figures. He studied the behavior of light in nature with almost obsessive precision. In notebooks like the Codex Urbanus, he recorded experiments with lenses, mirrors, and reflections. He noted how sunlight shifts through different times of day, how shadows elongate and retract, how surfaces absorb or scatter light. To Leonardo, light was not merely illumination. It was a medium through which reality itself could be observed, measured, and understood. By mastering it, he could manipulate perception, create illusions, and hint at truths invisible to casual observers. This interplay between light and shadow also allowed Leonardo to encode dualities in his art. Darkness could conceal danger, moral ambiguity, or hidden emotion, while light revealed clarity, truth, or divine order. In paintings like Virgin of the Rocks, the grotto's shadowy recesses seem alive, hiding faces or forms that appear only when the viewer's attention shifts. The chiaroscuro becomes a secret language, speaking to those patient enough to decode its messages. Shadows conceal, but they also reveal, creating tension between what is seen and what is hidden, a theme central to Leonardo's artistic philosophy. Leonardo's studies were not limited to observation. He conducted experiments with prisms, lenses, and reflected light, investigating the physics of vision itself. His fascination with how the eye perceives gradations of light informed both his paintings and his scientific writings. He sought to understand not only what light does, but how perception transforms it, how the mind interprets shadow and brightness. In doing so, he bridged art and science, intuition and calculation, creating works that resonate on multiple levels simultaneously. There is also a symbolic dimension. Light often signifies knowledge, revelation, or divinity, while shadow can signify mystery, concealment, or danger. Leonardo exploited these associations to craft subtle narratives. In the Baptism of Christ, for example, light illuminates the central figures while shadows obscure the background, suggesting a hierarchy of focus and meaning. Shadows may also hide esoteric symbols or geometric patterns, accessible only to those who look beyond the surface. Some scholars argue that Leonardo's shadows carry encrypted messages. By altering the darkness of folds, the angles of recesses, or the gradations of a background, he may have embedded codes in his art, visible only under close scrutiny or specific conditions of light. Infrared and ultraviolet imaging of his works has revealed underdrawings and erased sketches, hinting that even the shadows themselves may be layered with intent. Every stroke of darkness is potentially a clue, a whisper of thought hidden beneath the surface. Leonardo's manipulation of light and shadow also reveals his philosophical preoccupations. He believed the world was composed of forces, tensions, and relationships between matter and void, body and spirit, knowledge and ignorance. Chiaroscuro allowed him to visualize these tensions, to give form to invisible principles. Light defines space, shadow defines form. Together, they articulate the hidden structure of reality. In this sense, every painting becomes a study not only of perception, but of truth itself. Finally, Leonardo's mastery of light and shadow contributes to the enduring mystery and emotional impact of his work. By guiding the viewer's gaze, creating illusions, and embedding hidden forms, he ensures that each observation yields new discoveries. No matter how often we look, the paintings seem to shift, revealing different moods, patterns, or possibilities. The interplay of illumination and darkness becomes a metaphor for the elusive nature of knowledge and the thrill of discovery, a visual code that invites us to question, explore, and wonder. In the end, Leonardo's obsession with light and shadow was more than technical brilliance. It was a means of storytelling, a method of encoding thought, and a reflection of his insatiable curiosity. Each gradient, each subtle transition, serves as both a tool and a riddle, drawing us into his mind centuries after his death. Through light and shadow, Leonardo not only painted reality, he painted mystery itself, leaving us to navigate the luminous and the dark, forever searching for the secrets he wove into every work. Leonardo da Vinci did not merely observe nature, he listened to it. Every ripple in a stream, every flight of a bird, every pattern of leaves captured his attention, not as decoration, but as revelation. To him, nature was a language, a living manuscript written in forms, rhythms, and proportions, waiting to be read by those willing to see. In Leonardo's mind, understanding this language was the key to understanding the universe itself. From his earliest notebooks, Leonardo recorded meticulous studies of water, air, and earth. He traced the spirals of whirlpools, noting how currents twist and converge. He examined eddies, vortices, and turbulent flows with the precision of a mathematician, sketching diagrams that resemble both art and scientific chart. Water, he wrote, does not move chaotically. It obeys patterns, rules hidden to the untrained eye. In these patterns, he believed, lay the blueprint of creation. Birds fascinated him not just for their beauty, but for their mechanics. Leonardo dissected wings, studied flight paths, and experimented with gliders, seeking to uncover the principles of lift, balance, and motion. To him, the motion of a bird mirrored cosmic laws, forces invisible to the naked eye, but palpable to one who could observe deeply. Flight became more than physical. It became symbolic, a bridge between earth and sky, matter and spirit. Plants and trees also spoke to Leonardo. He sketched branching patterns, the symmetry of leaves, the growth of roots, and noted the spirals of seeds and flowers. He saw mathematics in these patterns, a recurring geometry that linked all living things. Phyllotaxis, the Fibonacci spirals of nature, and radial symmetry were not mere curiosities. They were evidence of an underlying order, a universal grammar written into life itself. Leonardo's studies of anatomy were intertwined with this natural philosophy. He believed that the human body was part of nature's language, a microcosm of the larger cosmos. Veins traced the patterns of rivers. Muscles followed mechanical laws. Bones reflected architectural principles. By decoding the human form, Leonardo was also decoding nature, reading the same language written in flesh, leaf, water, and air. He documented the behavior of light in nature as well, observing how shadows stretch, how reflections distort, and how transparency alters perception. Leonardo understood that light reveals structure but also creates illusion, and he used these principles to craft both art and knowledge. The play of light on a wave, or through leaves, became an equation of beauty and truth. a formula Leonardo could sketch with pen and ink. Leonardo also sought patterns in chaos. Storms, clouds, and water currents are inherently unpredictable, yet he found order in their forms. Swirling eddies, twisting tornadoes, and billowing clouds follow hidden dynamics, and Leonardo attempted to map these mathematically. His notebooks reveal not just sketches but rules, diagrams, and descriptions, hinting at a vision of nature as a unified system, a coded manuscript of forces and interactions. His fascination extended to human interaction with nature. Leonardo was keenly aware of how environmental forces shape behavior, how landscapes guide movement, and how natural resources influence society. His sketches of rivers, bridges, and urban planning show that he did not separate art, science, and human experience. They were all intertwined in the language of the world around him. Some scholars argue that Leonardo encoded this understanding into his art. The Mona Lisa's landscape, the Virgin of the Rocks, and even the Last Supper are infused with natural forms that are not merely backgrounds but symbolic, echoing hidden geometries, flows, and balances observed in real life. Nature itself becomes a silent character, guiding the narrative, hinting at universal truths, and providing clues to the mind of the artist. The true genius of Leonardo lies not only in his observation, but in his interpretation. Nature, for him, was a cipher, a text to be read and decoded. Every curve, twist, and proportion revealed a principle, a secret, a law that could illuminate both science and art. He perceived the world as a symphony of patterns, rhythms, and forces, all connected, all intelligible to those willing to study carefully. By seeing the world this way, Leonardo challenged the norms of his time. While many contemporaries revered nature only as divine creation or a source of artistic inspiration, Leonardo treated it as a living system, comprehensible yet mysterious, rational yet beautiful. He bridged observation and imagination, fact and philosophy, turning every leaf, river, and wing into a line of a cosmic manuscript. And so, the language of nature becomes central to Leonardo's vision. It is not enough to admire beauty or measure mechanics. One must read, interpret, and understand the underlying principles. Every study, every sketch, every painting is infused with this philosophy, that the universe speaks, and those who listen carefully may glimpse its secrets. Ultimately, Leonardo's pursuit of nature's language is a call to the observer. It invites curiosity, patience, and attention to detail. It challenges us to see beyond appearances, to recognize patterns, and to understand the profound connections that bind life, matter, and spirit. In learning this language, we not only approach Leonardo's genius, we begin to decode the hidden structures of the world itself. Leonardo da Vinci's mind was never content with the limits of human motion or earthly mechanics. From the gears of clocks to the flight of birds, he sought to understand how the world worked and how it could be reshaped. His notebooks are filled with sketches of machines that seem centuries ahead of their time. Flying devices, war engines, hydraulic innovations, and automata. But within these mechanical studies lies a deeper mystery. Leonardo did not merely invent machines. He encoded principles, philosophy, and secrets within them. Consider his flying machines. Leonardo dissected birds, studied wing curvature, and sketched gliders, ornithopters, and even proto-helicopters. At first glance, these are exercises in aerodynamics, attempts to conquer the skies. But they also reflect Leonardo's fascination with harmony and proportion. The structure of each wing, the arrangement of levers, the balance of weight and force, all echo the mathematical and geometric principles that permeate his art. Flight was not just physical. It was a metaphor for human aspiration, intellect rising above the earthly plane, echoing Renaissance ideals of discovery and mastery. Leonardo's machines also carried hidden philosophical significance. Gears, pulleys, and cams were not simply tools. They were models of the universe itself, tangible representations of forces and interactions. In sketches of gears and water wheels, one can see Leonardo's mind mapping patterns of cause and effect, rhythm, and timing. Each machine becomes a microcosm, a way to understand motion, energy, and balance in both nature and society. It is as if he is encoding the laws of the cosmos into metal and wood, creating devices that are both practical and symbolic. War machines are another layer of his genius. Tanks, catapults, and multi-barreled cannons appear in his notebooks, yet many were never built. Were these real designs intended for patrons or exercises in theoretical engineering? Some scholars suggest a third possibility. Leonardo used these sketches to explore mechanics abstractly, encoding principles of tension, force, and leverage without revealing fully operational weapons. The machines become puzzles, intellectual challenges embedded within the page, blending invention with secrecy. Hydraulics fascinated him as well. Leonardo designed canals, locks, and water-lifting devices, studying fluid dynamics with unmatched precision. His sketches map turbulence, flow patterns, and pressure, reflecting the same meticulous observation that guided his studies of rivers and whirlpools. Water becomes both subject and teacher. By understanding its motion, he could design machines and structures that harnessed natural forces. Again, there is a hidden layer, mathematical principles and geometric harmonies embedded within practical engineering. Each device is simultaneously functional and symbolic, a manifestation of the hidden order of the world. Automata, or mechanical humans, demonstrate Leonardo's desire to replicate life itself. He sketched robotic knights, moving puppets, and self-operating mechanisms, blending anatomy, mechanics, and creativity. These automata reveal his fascination with the intersection of nature and technology. How human motion could be broken down into measurable components, how forces could be translated into movement. They also suggest philosophical questions about life, agency, and the boundary between human and machine. Leonardo's sketches are playful, ingenious, and deeply enigmatic, a reflection of a mind that saw no boundary between art, science, and secret knowledge. The genius of Leonardo's machines lies not only in their innovation, but in their layered meaning. He rarely built them. Many exist only in sketches. This ambiguity raises questions. Were they exercises in thought, demonstrations of technical knowledge, or coded messages for future inventors? The mechanical diagrams often hide proportions, geometric ratios, and subtle annotations that suggest a secret language of engineering, one that intertwines with his studies of anatomy, art, and nature. There's also the matter of secrecy and security. Some machines, particularly those designed for warfare, could have been dangerous in the wrong hands. Leonardo's backward script and layered drawings may have served as protection, ensuring that only those with patience, intelligence, or initiation could decipher their full design. In this sense, his mechanical work is like his art, beautiful, precise, and encoded with knowledge reserved for those capable of understanding it. Leonardo's obsession with machines reflects a deeper human question. How do we control, imitate, and surpass the forces of nature? Each device is a meditation on power, balance, and ingenuity. A flying machine mirrors the aspirations of the soul. A water wheel mirrors the flow of time and energy. A robotic knight mirrors the mechanics of life itself. Leonardo's notebooks become laboratories of imagination, blending observation, theory, and speculation into an intricate network of invention. Finally, Leonardo's mechanical studies emphasize interconnectedness. Forces, motion, geometry, and human anatomy converge in his sketches. He was seeking not isolated inventions, but understanding of universal principles, a hidden code that linked art, nature, and engineering. His machines are lessons in observation, creativity, and secret knowledge, demonstrating that innovation is inseparable from curiosity, discipline, and the willingness to explore the unseen. In the end, Leonardo's machines are more than prototypes. They are a window into a mind that sought to decode the world. They reflect his relentless curiosity, his desire to understand hidden forces, and his capacity to encode secrets in elegant, precise diagrams. To study them is to glimpse a Renaissance intellect that merged art, science, and philosophy, leaving a legacy of ingenuity, mystery, and coded genius that continues to captivate centuries later. Leonardo da Vinci's fascination with animals went far beyond simple observation. Birds, lions, horses, and even insects populated his sketches, paintings, and notebooks, not merely as studies in anatomy, but as vessels of meaning. To Leonardo, animals were messengers of nature's hidden laws, symbols of human traits, and reflections of the cosmos. Each creature he drew, each movement he captured, carried layers of observation, philosophy, and coded insight. Birds, above all, captivated him. Their flight was a study in mechanics and a metaphor for human aspiration. Leonardo dissected wings, tracing feathers and bone with painstaking detail, seeking the principles of lift, balance, and aerodynamics. Yet flight was more than physics. Birds embodied freedom, transcendence, and spiritual elevation. In sketches and notes, Leonardo often aligned the wing's geometry with mathematical ratios and natural spirals, suggesting that their movement mirrored universal harmony. Flight, therefore, was both literal and symbolic, bridging earth and sky, body and mind. Horses, another recurring subject, symbolize strength, grace, and control. Leonardo meticulously studied their musculature and gait, capturing tension and motion with remarkable precision. Horses were also tools of human expression, instruments of war, agents of labor, companions in daily life. By drawing them so intimately, Leonardo explored not only anatomy, but the interconnectedness of nature and humanity, the way one form of life mirrors another in strength, rhythm, and beauty. Lions appear less frequently, but carry profound weight. They symbolize courage, power, and nobility, qualities that Renaissance thinkers associated with rulers and the divine order. Leonardo's depictions are strikingly lifelike, emphasizing both majesty and latent violence. The tension in a crouching lion, the focus in its gaze, reflects his understanding of animal behavior and his desire to capture the essence of spirit within form. The lion becomes a mirror for human ambition, restraint, and potential for both creation and destruction. Smaller creatures, rabbits, insects, birds' nests, populate Leonardo's notebooks with equal intensity. He studied the intricate mechanics of joints, wings, and shells, revealing principles that govern movement and form across species. These studies suggest that Leonardo sought a universal language of nature, where the patterns of one creature could illuminate the structures of another, from human anatomy to celestial order. Even the tiniest detail, a bird's claw, a rabbit's ear, was a clue to broader cosmic truths. Animals in Leonardo's paintings often carry symbolic or hidden meaning. In The Virgin of the Rocks, the careful positioning of creatures in the background reflects both compositional balance and potential coded references. Some scholars argue that Leonardo embedded specific animals to symbolize virtues, vices, or philosophical concepts, a visual code accessible to those who could read nature allegorically. The interplay between real observation and symbolic interpretation is central to understanding his approach. Leonardo's observation of predatory and prey animals reveals his interest in natural law and the balance of forces. The interaction between hunter and hunted, predator and companion, illustrates cycles of life, energy transfer, and equilibrium. These insights were not merely artistic. They informed his mechanical studies, his understanding of motion, and his perception of a universe as an interconnected system where each element mirrors another. Some researchers suggest that Leonardo encoded moral and spiritual lessons through animals. For example, birds may signify aspiration and divine connection, lions' courage and authority, and humble creatures like rabbits or insects' innocence and the meticulous order of creation. In this sense, the animals act as a silent language, delivering messages about the human condition, ethics, and cosmic principles. Leonardo's genius lies in embedding these lessons seamlessly within the observable world. There is also a mathematical and geometric dimension. Leonardo often aligned animals' proportions with the golden ratio, Fibonacci spirals, and other natural symmetries. A bird's wing, a horse's leg, or the curve of a lion's mane may correspond to hidden ratios that echo his studies of anatomy, architecture, and cosmic order. These alignments suggest that Leonardo viewed animals as microcosms of the universe, living proofs of patterns and principles that govern both life and art. Leonardo's fascination with animals extends to their interaction with humans. Horses, dogs, and birds are often depicted alongside figures, demonstrating relationships that convey emotion, narrative, or philosophical ideas. The observer is invited to notice not only anatomy, but gesture, motion, and behavior, interpreting these interactions as symbolic reflections of human experience. In this way, animals serve as mirrors, teaching us about ourselves, our instincts, our virtues, and our vulnerabilities. Ultimately, the symbolism of animals in Leonardo's work is a window into his worldview. He recognized patterns in nature, mirrored them in human forms, and wove them into art and scientific observation alike. Animals are not passive subjects. They are active participants in a hidden language that encodes knowledge, philosophy, and mystery. By studying them, Leonardo sought to decode the universe, revealing the threads connecting life, matter, and spirit. The enduring power of his animal studies lies in their duality. They are precise, observable, and real, yet simultaneously symbolic, philosophical, and enigmatic. Each creature, each movement becomes a clue, an encoded message, a meditation on nature and humanity. Observers are drawn into a dialogue, challenged to see patterns, recognize allegory, and uncover truths concealed within the living world. Through animals, Leonardo communicates a profound idea, that nature itself is a text, waiting to be read by those patient enough to observe and insightful enough to understand. In every feather, fur, and claw lies a secret, a reflection of cosmic order, and a whisper of the genius who sought to translate life into knowledge. Leonardo da Vinci's art is often celebrated for its beauty, realism, and emotional power, but beneath the surface lies a secret layer: geometry. To Leonardo, shapes, ratios, and mathematical relationships were not mere tools. They were the language of the universe, the key to unlocking both aesthetic perfection and hidden meaning. Every line, every curve, every composition in his work is meticulously calculated, often concealing symbols, codes, and philosophical truths that remain a mystery centuries later. The golden ratio, or divina proportion, appears repeatedly in Leonardo's work. This mathematical principle, which defines a proportion scene as naturally harmonious, guides the composition of faces, limbs, and backgrounds. In the Mona Lisa, the proportions of her face, the placement of her hands, and even the subtle landscape behind her are said to align with these ratios. But Leonardo did not merely aim for pleasing aesthetics. He was embedding a visual code, a reflection of universal order, linking human form to cosmic law. Triangles and circles appear as recurring motifs, often unnoticed by casual observers. In the Last Supper, Christ's body forms a perfect triangle, his head at the apex, creating both balance and symbolism. Triangles in Renaissance thought represented the Trinity, stability, and the harmony of creation. Circles, by contrast, symbolize perfection, eternity, and the heavens. Leonardo placed human figures at the intersection of these shapes, suggesting that humanity is both grounded and divine, bound by earthly laws, yet reaching toward the infinite. Leonardo also used geometry to guide emotion and narrative. Lines of perspective, vanishing points, and intersecting diagonals draw the viewers to critical moments or figures. In the Last Supper, the vanishing point is Christ's head, subtly reinforcing his centrality, while converging lines create tension among the apostles, heightening drama. Geometry, here, is not static. It is a narrative device, a hidden hand orchestrating movement, attention, and meaning. The interplay of forms often conceals esoteric or symbolic messages. Some researchers argue that Leonardo embedded alchemical, Hermetic, or Pythagorean principles within his geometric designs. Spirals, polygons, and intersecting arcs appear in backgrounds, clothing folds, and hand gestures, hinting at hidden wisdom encoded for the initiated. These shapes may reference cosmic order, spiritual ascent, or the harmony between mathematics and nature, reflecting Leonardo's belief that geometry is a bridge between the visible and invisible worlds. Leonardo's sketches reveal his fascination with polyhedra, circles, and other complex shapes. In the Codex Atlanticus and Codex Leicester, he explores the dodecahedron, octahedron, and other solids, studying how they relate to light, shadow, and spatial perception. Some of these forms later influenced his paintings, appearing subtly in architectural elements, halos, or compositional frameworks. Geometry becomes both study and signature, an underlying structure visible only to those who look closely. Even the human body is a geometric puzzle. Leonardo sought to map proportions mathematically, aligning joints, limbs, and facial features with lines, ratios, and curves. The Vitruvian Man is the ultimate example, placing the human body within a circle and square to express cosmic order. But this is not merely anatomical. It is philosophical, an assertion that man is a microcosm reflecting the macrocosm, governed by the same mathematical laws as the stars, rivers, and spirals of nature. Geometry also plays a role in storytelling. Leonardo's compositions guide the viewer's gaze, create rhythm, and evoke tension. Subtle diagonals suggest motion, while balanced ratios convey serenity or divine order. Hidden triangles, circles, and arcs may encode moral, spiritual, or narrative cues, transforming his works into puzzles that challenge perception, intelligence, and intuition simultaneously. Observers become participants in the geometry, deciphering a secret visual language embedded within the canvas. Some scholars have explored the possibility of even deeper codes. Could Leonardo have hidden alphanumeric messages or symbolic sequences within the intersecting lines and shapes? The precise alignment of features, repeated ratios, and overlapping forms suggest that geometry may serve as a cipher, encoding knowledge about philosophy, science, or the esoteric. While interpretations remain speculative, the very possibility reinforces the sense that Leonardo's art is multidimensional, blending visual beauty with intellectual mystery. Leonardo's use of geometry also reflects his broader worldview. He perceived the universe as ordered, harmonious, and intelligible. Nature, human anatomy, and the cosmos all adhere to principles that can be expressed mathematically. By embedding geometry in his art, Leonardo was not merely achieving visual perfection. He was illustrating a cosmic truth, a hidden code linking the microcosm to the macrocosm, humanity to the divine, observation to understanding. The hidden geometry in Leonardo's work continues to captivate modern scholars, mathematicians, and artists. High-resolution imaging, digital mapping, and analysis of perspective reveal alignments, ratios, and intersections that were previously unnoticed. Each discovery deepens the sense of awe, suggesting that Leonardo's compositions operate on multiple levels simultaneously: aesthetic, symbolic, philosophical, and secretive. The viewer is drawn into a game of perception and intellect, challenged to read not only what is visible, but also what is encoded. Ultimately, Leonardo's geometric mastery serves both as a key and a veil. It guides attention, encodes meaning, and frames narrative, yet conceals the full scope of his knowledge, leaving room for mystery. His paintings and sketches are puzzles in plain sight, revealing structure, harmony, and hidden codes to those willing to seek. Through geometry, Leonardo demonstrates that beauty, science, and secrecy are intertwined, that every line may carry intention, and that the world itself can be read like a book written in shapes, ratios, and patterns. Through this hidden geometry, Leonardo invites us to look closer, think deeper, and recognize the invisible threads connecting art, nature, and the cosmos. His works are both instruction and enigma, evidence of a mind that saw beyond appearances, that encoded secrets into every form, every shadow, and every curve. Geometry becomes a language, a secret message from a Renaissance genius, challenging us to uncover the truths hidden in plain sight. Beyond anatomy, machines, and art, Leonardo da Vinci's work is suffused with a subtle mysticism, a sense that the visible world is only a fragment of a deeper, hidden reality. He lived during the Renaissance, a period of extraordinary intellectual and spiritual exploration, when science, philosophy, and esoteric traditions intertwined. Leonardo's notebooks and paintings reveal that he was not merely a man of observation, but a seeker of hidden truths, influenced by mystical currents that shaped his vision of the universe. Hermeticism, a philosophical and mystical tradition tracing back to ancient Egypt, left a discernible mark on Leonardo. Its core principle, that all of creation is interconnected and reflects divine order, resonates in his study of nature, geometry, and human anatomy. Leonardo believed that by observing and understanding the microcosm, the human body, the flow of water, the flight of birds, he could apprehend the macrocosm, the universe itself. Every sketch, every painting, and every diagram becomes a meditation on the unity of all things. Alchemy, another contemporary influence, also colored his work. Though Leonardo did not leave explicit records of alchemical experiments, his notebooks contain symbolic references to transformation, balance, and the interplay of opposites: light and dark, motion and stillness, life and decay. In the Last Supper, the contrast between the illuminated Christ and the shadowed apostles may reflect such dualities, suggesting that spiritual truths can be encoded in the material world, perceptible only to the initiated or the observant. Religious and philosophical thought shaped his understanding of human destiny. The Renaissance was a time when thinkers questioned orthodoxy, explored the nature of the soul, and sought hidden knowledge in scripture, nature, and classical texts. Leonardo absorbed these currents, blending them with empirical observation. His fascination with proportion, harmony, and the interplay of forces can be seen as an attempt to reconcile human reason with divine order, to map the sacred into the tangible. Leonardo's fascination with the number 3 is another mystical thread. Triads appear repeatedly in his art. The Holy Trinity in the Last Supper, triangular compositions of figures, and geometric patterns in sketches. 3 represented balance, unity, and perfection in both Christian and Hermetic symbolism. Through these repetitions, Leonardo encoded spiritual and philosophical meaning, suggesting that geometry, number, and form are conduits to understanding the hidden laws of creation. Nature itself became a mystical teacher. Leonardo did not see water, clouds, or trees as mere phenomena. He saw them as expressions of cosmic principles. The spiral of a whirlpool, the flight of a bird, the branching of a tree, all revealed a hidden intelligence, a divine order underlying chaos. Observing nature was not just scientific. It was a spiritual practice, a method for perceiving the sacred in the everyday. Every sketch, diagram, or study is imbued with this reverence, a record of both observation and awe. Some scholars suggest that Leonardo encoded mystical symbols into his paintings. The careful placement of hands, the subtle geometry of backgrounds, and even the gestures of figures may reflect spiritual or esoteric ideas. These are not obvious messages. They are whispers, visible only to those attuned to symbolism, geometry, and hidden currents of thought. His art becomes a vessel for philosophical and mystical reflection, a layered dialogue between the material and spiritual worlds. Leonardo was also influenced by Neoplatonism, the belief that the material world reflects higher, perfect forms. This philosophy resonates in his pursuit of proportion, symmetry, and idealized human figures. The human body, in Leonardo's eyes, is a reflection of cosmic order, a bridge between the earthly and the divine. Through meticulous study, he sought to uncover the language of a universe, using geometry, observation, and symbolism as keys to hidden truths. Light and shadow, too, acquire mystical significance. Chiaroscuro is not only a technical tool, it becomes a metaphor for knowledge and ignorance, revelation and concealment, the seen and unseen. In Leonardo's paintings, the interplay of illumination and darkness may encode philosophical insights. That truth is layered, perception is selective, and understanding requires careful observation, patience, and interpretation. Ultimately, Leonardo's mystical influences reveal a mind striving to reconcile observation with meaning, science with philosophy, and the tangible with the transcendent. His art, notebooks, and mechanical studies are united by this quest, a search for hidden order, a dialogue with nature, and a pursuit of wisdom that transcends centuries. The mystical currents running through his work suggest that Leonardo's genius was not merely technical, but spiritual, intellectual, and profoundly human, seeking to bridge the gap between what is seen and what is known. Leonardo da Vinci's portraits are some of the most studied and most mysterious artworks in history. From the Mona Lisa to Ginevra da Vinci, his subjects are not merely captured for likeness. They're transformed into living enigmas, each face a vessel of subtle emotion, hidden geometry, and coded meaning. Leonardo's portraits are layered, challenging the viewer to look beyond surface beauty into the depths of psychology, symbolism, and secret knowledge. The Mona Lisa remains the quintessential example. Her smile has fascinated, baffled, and haunted observers for centuries. It appears to change with every glance, a phenomenon caused by Leonardo's mastery of sfumato, the technique of blending colors and shadows seamlessly. The result is a face that seems alive, shifting subtly with the viewer's perception. But this is only the surface. Beneath the serene exterior lies a network of hidden proportions, geometric alignments, and possibly encoded symbols, suggesting that Leonardo embedded a secret language within her visage. Her hands are as telling as her expression. Gently crossed and resting in the foreground, they create a triangular composition, drawing attention to balance and proportion. The positioning may reference classical ideals of harmony, while also subtly guiding the viewer's eye through the painting. Some researchers argue that these gestures, combined with her gaze and the underlying geometry of the landscape, form a symbolic map, perhaps of cosmic or philosophical principles. The portrait becomes more than a likeness. It is a cipher, a meditation on order, perception, and the hidden forces that shape reality. Other portraits, like Ginevra da Vinci, exhibit a similar depth. At first glance, they are formal depictions of nobility, but closer study reveals hidden complexity. The subtle use of shadow, the precise alignment of facial features, and the interplay with background landscapes suggest symbolic intent. Leonardo may have used these elements to communicate character, virtue, or inner thought, encoded through gesture, proportion, and placement. Even the choice of background, trees, skies, or rivers, can carry symbolic weight, linking the sitter to nature, cosmology, or philosophical ideals. Leonardo's use of gaze is particularly enigmatic. Subjects rarely meet the viewer's eyes directly. Their glances are calculated, often appearing to follow or evade. This creates an interactive experience, drawing the observer into a psychological dialogue. Combined with subtle expressions and sfumato shading, the gaze conveys emotion, intellect, and perhaps hidden knowledge. Each portrait becomes a puzzle, offering hints of personality, moral character, and concealed truths while leaving space for ambiguity and interpretation. Geometry plays a central role in his portraits as well. Triangles, circles, and the golden ratio appear in the placement of heads, hands, and even background elements. These geometric frameworks are not merely aesthetic. They may encode spiritual or philosophical principles. In the Mona Lisa, the triangle formed by her hands and face mirrors classical notions of balance and divinity, while the winding roads and rivers in the landscape may align with geometric or symbolic patterns meant to convey harmony between humanity and nature. Symbolism extends beyond geometry. Leonardo often embedded animals, plants, or objects with moral, philosophical, or esoteric significance. A flower, a bird, or a tree in the background may carry coded messages, hinting at virtues, hidden knowledge, or spiritual truths. These elements are subtle, woven into the composition so seamlessly that only the most attentive observers notice them. Leonardo's genius lies in this layering. Portraits operate simultaneously on levels of likeness, emotion, geometry, and hidden meaning, challenging viewers to uncover the full depth. Light and shadow amplify the mystery. Chiaroscuro guides the viewer's attention, accentuates form, and suggests hidden depth. The way light caresses a cheek or falls across the hand may create dual images, patterns, or subtle illusions. In some cases, researchers have detected previously hidden sketches or alterations beneath the surface, hinting at Leonardo's iterative process and his tendency to embed additional layers of meaning. Portraits, then, are not static. They are dynamic, revealing new insights with closer study and changing perception. Leonardo's enigmatic portraits also reflect his fascination with human psychology. He was interested in capturing not just outward appearance, but inner life, the fleeting expressions, emotions, and cognitive subtleties that define individuality. The result is portraits that feel alive, psychologically complex, and perpetually shifting. Viewers are drawn into a dialogue with the sitter, sensing intelligence, emotion, and mystery, yet never fully penetrating the secrets held within. Some scholars propose that Leonardo used portraits to encode knowledge for select observers. The interplay of gesture, expression, background, and geometry may serve as a visual code, linking anatomy, philosophy, and cosmology. Each element, from the curve of a hand to the slope of a horizon, may carry meaning beyond mere aesthetics. His portraits thus operate on multiple planes: representational, symbolic, philosophical, and secretive. Ultimately, Leonardo's portraits are masterpieces of enigma. They fuse realism with abstraction, emotion with geometry, and observation with secrecy. Each painting invites prolonged contemplation, challenging viewers to reconcile the visible with the hidden. They are not merely images of people. They are gateways into Leonardo's mind, windows into his philosophy, and reflections of his belief that art, science, and mystery are inseparable. The enduring fascination with his portraits lies in this layering. They captivate because they are alive, shifting, and endlessly interpretable. The mystery is both aesthetic and intellectual. Every glance reveals new patterns, new possibilities, new secrets. Leonardo's portraits are not just to be seen. They are to be read, decoded, and experienced, a dialogue across centuries between genius and observer, form and meaning, visible and hidden. For centuries, scholars, historians, and enthusiasts have speculated that Leonardo da Vinci's works contain hidden messages, codes, and secret knowledge. From the subtle geometry of his compositions to the mysterious gestures of his subjects, the suggestion that his art communicates beyond its immediate appearance has fascinated generations. Theories abound, ranging from philosophical allegories to encoded scientific principles, and even claims of esoteric or prophetic content. Each theory adds layers of intrigue to an already enigmatic body of work. One prominent theory centers on geometry as a vehicle for hidden meaning. Leonardo's meticulous use of triangles, circles, spirals, and the golden ratio is widely recognized, but some researchers argue these forms serve a dual purpose. They encode knowledge accessible only to those who understand their symbolic significance. In the Mona Lisa, For example, the triangular composition of her hands and face may do more than create balance. It may reference harmony, spiritual ascent, or philosophical principles derived from Hermeticism and Neoplatonism. Geometry becomes a language, a hidden code woven into the very structure of the painting. Others focus on anatomical symbolism. Leonardo's detailed studies of the human body suggest a fascination with proportion, motion, and function, but some scholars propose that these sketches contain concealed messages. In the Vitruvian Man, the alignment of the human figure with the circle and square may be interpreted as a map of cosmic order, linking humanity to the universe. Some even suggest that subtle anomalies or exaggerated features could signal encrypted philosophical or alchemical concepts, intentionally embedded to challenge the perceptive observer. Symbolic interpretation is another major area of study. Many of Leonardo's works contain plants, animals, and objects whose placement and form may carry hidden meaning. In The Last Supper, for instance, the positioning of the apostles, their gestures, and the shapes created by their hands and arms have been scrutinized for potential symbolic significance. Some claim that Leonardo encoded moral lessons, theological insights, or even secret knowledge in these compositions, turning the painting into a layered visual manuscript. The use of light and shadow provides yet another avenue for speculation. Leonardo's mastery of chiaroscuro is not only aesthetic. It may also conceal and reveal information. Shadows could mask symbols, obscure details, or guide perception in ways invisible to the casual viewer. Infrared and ultraviolet studies of his paintings have revealed hidden underdrawings and alterations, suggesting that Leonardo continually refined his work, potentially embedding secret forms and messages in the layers beneath the visible surface. Some researchers have proposed that Leonardo's backward handwriting, the mirror script found in his notebooks, was not merely a quirk but a deliberate method of encoding information. Combined with diagrams, sketches, and complex annotations, this writing style may have protected sensitive ideas from prying eyes, whether scientific, philosophical, or esoteric. Mirror writing could serve as a protective barrier, ensuring that knowledge was accessible only to those willing to invest effort and intellect in decoding it. Historical and esoteric influences also inform theories of hidden messages. Leonardo lived during a time when Hermeticism, Neoplatonism, and alchemical thought flourished. These traditions emphasize the interconnectedness of the cosmos, the symbolic significance of numbers and geometry, and the possibility of hidden truths accessible only to the initiated. Leonardo's fascination with proportion, the natural world, and mystical philosophy suggests that he may have embedded these ideas subtly within his work, creating a bridge between empirical observation and spiritual insight. Some claim that Leonardo's messages extend beyond symbolism to prophecy. While controversial, theories abound that his paintings encode predictions or moral lessons about humanity, history, and science. The Last Supper and Mona Lisa are often cited as examples where hidden alignments, gestures, or background forms could carry allegorical significance, possibly reflecting Leonardo's contemplation of destiny, morality, and the interplay of human and divine forces. Whether these are intentional prophecies or products of human pattern-seeking remains a matter of debate, but the fascination endures. A particularly intriguing dimension is the possibility of multi-layered coding. Leonardo's works combine anatomy, geometry, symbolism, light, and gesture, suggesting that messages could exist simultaneously on several levels. For example, a single hand gesture could have anatomical significance, geometric alignment, and symbolic meaning. This creates an intricate web of interpretation, where observing one layer without the others may yield an incomplete understanding, and only by integrating multiple perspectives can a deeper message be approached. The debate over hidden messages also raises philosophical questions. Did Leonardo encode these secrets as a form of intellectual play, as a spiritual exercise, or as a safeguard for knowledge? Some scholars argue that the very act of hiding knowledge reflects a Renaissance tension between revelation and concealment, between the thirst for understanding and the dangers of exposure. Leonardo's art, in this light, becomes a meditation on secrecy itself, a challenge to the observer to look carefully, think critically, and engage deeply. Modern technology has intensified the study of these theories. High-resolution imaging, digital mapping, and forensic analysis of brushwork have revealed patterns, alignments, and previously invisible details, fueling speculation about hidden messages. Each discovery reinforces the sense that Leonardo's work is layered, complex, and designed to provoke curiosity. It blurs the boundary between art and puzzle, beauty and enigma, observation and secret knowledge. Ultimately, the fascination with hidden messages is part of Leonardo's enduring mystique. His works captivate not only because of their technical brilliance or emotional power, but because they invite interpretation, questioning, and wonder. They challenge viewers to consider that beneath every shadow, curve, and proportion may lie a secret waiting to be discovered. A whisper from the past urging us to think, to observe, and to search for truth. Through these layers of meaning, Leonardo transforms art into a dialogue across centuries, where the observer becomes a participant in a game of perception, intellect, and intuition. Whether the hidden messages are philosophical, scientific, or symbolic, they reinforce a central truth. Leonardo's genius was not confined to the visible world. He sought to encode the unseen, to challenge perception, and to invite us into a labyrinth of knowledge, beauty, and mystery that continues to fascinate and inspire. Leonardo da Vinci's genius extends far beyond his lifetime, reaching into centuries of art, science, philosophy, and mystery. The hidden knowledge embedded in his works, geometry, symbolism, anatomy, and enigmatic messages, continues to captivate scholars, artists, and seekers of truth alike. His legacy is not merely the masterpieces left behind, but the intellectual and spiritual challenge he bequeathed to observe, question, and uncover the hidden structures of reality. The influence of his hidden knowledge can be seen in art for generations after him. Renaissance painters, inspired by Leonardo's mastery of proportion, composition, and human expression, sought to emulate not just his technique, but his approach to observation. They studied anatomy, light, and geometry, understanding that these were tools to reveal deeper truths. Yet few reached the level of layered subtlety that Leonardo achieved, where art serves both aesthetic and intellectual purposes, where every line and shadow is deliberate, meaningful, and potentially secret. Scientists and inventors, too, have felt the reach of his vision. Leonardo's mechanical sketches, hydrodynamic studies, and anatomical observations prefigured discoveries centuries ahead of his time. Engineers, anatomists, and physicists have turned to his notebooks for inspiration, finding ideas about flight, motion, and the human body that were centuries before their time. His work demonstrates that observation, creativity, and rigorous documentation can reveal truths hidden in plain sight, and that genius often lies in perceiving connections others overlook. The enduring fascination with Leonardo's hidden messages has created a bridge between disciplines. Art historians, mathematicians, cryptographers, and philosophers all find common ground in his works, analyzing patterns, symbols, and structures for clues about intention, meaning, and universal principles. In this way, Leonardo's legacy is not static. It is dynamic, a living dialogue that challenges minds to explore across fields and generations. His works invite perpetual curiosity, demanding that observers read, decode, and interpret, keeping the spirit of Renaissance inquiry alive. The Mona Lisa exemplifies this legacy. Beyond her smile lies centuries of study, debate, and speculation. Each examination, whether through imaging technology, geometric analysis, or psychological interpretation, reveals new layers of meaning, reinforcing the sense that Leonardo's works are multidimensional. Her enigmatic expression, carefully calculated proportions, and subtle background elements are a testament to a mind that encoded depth at every level. Every discovery, in turn, inspires new questions, continuing a cycle of fascination and revelation. Leonardo's approach to hidden knowledge also influenced modern understanding of interdisciplinary thinking. He treated art, science, philosophy, and mysticism not as separate domains, but as interconnected avenues of exploration. Observation of nature informed anatomy, which informed mechanics, which informed art, which reflected philosophical and mystical insights. This holistic vision anticipated modern systems thinking, highlighting the interconnectedness of phenomena and the value of integrating diverse fields to approach understanding. Mystery remains central to his legacy. Despite centuries of study, much about Leonardo's intentions, methods, and messages remains unknown. Were some symbols deliberate or coincidental? Are certain geometric alignments encoded messages or aesthetic choices? This uncertainty is part of the power of his work. It engages the imagination, fuels scholarship, and encourages the observer to participate in the pursuit of knowledge. Leonardo did not provide easy answers. He created works that require engagement, reflection, and interpretation. His legacy also invites reflection on the human capacity for curiosity and observation. Leonardo's insistence on careful study, meticulous documentation, and relentless questioning serves as a model for intellectual endeavor. His notebooks, sketches, and paintings remind us that knowledge is discovered not only through experimentation, but through attentiveness to the world, by seeing connections others miss, and by daring to explore hidden patterns and truths. The interplay of secrecy and revelation in his works adds a profound emotional and philosophical dimension. Hidden codes, subtle gestures, and layered symbolism suggest that truth is rarely straightforward, that perception is selective, and that understanding often requires patience, insight, and imagination. Leonardo's genius lies in this balance. He reveals enough to inspire awe, yet conceals enough to provoke inquiry, creating an enduring tension between discovery and mystery. Modern culture continues to be shaped by Leonardo's hidden knowledge. From films to literature, from academic research to popular speculation, his life and works inspire fascination with the intersection of genius, mystery, and human potential. The idea that art can encode knowledge, that observation can reveal hidden truths, and that intelligence and creativity are intertwined resonates across disciplines, inviting us to explore, question, and imagine. Finally, Leonardo's legacy is a call to the observer. It challenges us to see the world as he did, as a tapestry of interwoven forms, patterns, and forces, where every detail may carry meaning and every observation may yield insight. His art and writings are not static relics, but living texts, inviting engagement, reflection, and discovery. They remind us that curiosity, attention, and creativity are pathways to understanding both the visible and hidden dimensions of reality. In conclusion, Leonardo da Vinci left the world more than art and invention. He left a challenge to observe deeply, to think critically, to perceive hidden patterns, and to engage with the mystery of existence. His legacy is both inspiration and enigma, a bridge between centuries, a reminder that knowledge is layered, beauty is coded, and the pursuit of understanding is endless. What if the hidden knowledge in his works changes not just how we see art, but how we see the universe and ourselves? Leonardo's genius endures because it is not complete. It is an invitation, a secret whispered across time, daring each observer to listen, explore, and discover. This completes the full, cinematic, mysterious documentary outline with expanded sections from 1 through 23, culminating in a reflection on Leonardo's enduring legacy. Beyond technical mastery, geometry, and hidden messages, Leonardo da Vinci's work carries an emotional power that continues to move viewers centuries later. His paintings and sketches are not only intellectual exercises, they're deeply human expressions, capturing subtle feelings, psychological complexity, and the essence of lived experience. From a gentle smile to a fleeting gesture, every detail is infused with emotion, inviting observers to connect with the subjects on a profoundly personal level. The Mona Lisa exemplifies this emotional resonance. Her smile is enigmatic, suggesting joy, secrecy, or contemplation, depending on the viewer's perspective. Leonardo's use of sfumato softens her features, creating transitions between light and shadow that mimic the way emotions subtly shift in real life. The effect is almost alive. Observers sense movement, thought, and feeling in a still image, creating an intimate connection that transcends time. In The Last Supper, emotion is orchestrated on a grand scale. Each apostle expresses shock, doubt, or disbelief, capturing a dramatic moment frozen in time. Leonardo uses composition, gesture, and perspective to heighten emotional tension, drawing the viewer into the narrative. The interplay of fear, loyalty, and revelation mirrors human experience, emphasizing moral and spiritual stakes. It is not merely a biblical scene. It is a study in human psychology, morality, and vulnerability, engaging both heart and mind. Even in his sketches, Leonardo conveys emotion. Studies of hands, faces, and movement reveal a keen sensitivity to human behavior. The delicate curve of a finger, the tension in a shoulder, or the furrow of a brow communicates more than anatomy. It communicates intention, feeling, and the complexity of life. These sketches demonstrate that Leonardo observed not only form, but also the subtleties of experience, translating them into visual language that evokes empathy and introspection. Animals in Leonardo's work further contribute to emotional depth. Birds, horses, and lions are drawn with attention to both physicality and spirit. A bird in flight conveys freedom and aspiration. A horse at rest exudes grace and strength. A lion crouching evokes majesty and latent power. These images resonate emotionally because they mirror human traits and aspirations, creating connections between observer, creature, and cosmic order. Leonardo's ability to bridge human and animal emotion reinforces his holistic understanding of life. Light and shadow, integral to Leonardo's technique, amplify emotional impact. Subtle gradations, dramatic contrasts, and delicate highlights guide perception, evoke mood, and suggest depth of feeling. In The Virgin of the Rocks, the interplay of illumination and darkness enhances mystery and reverence, creating an atmosphere that invites reflection. The emotional experience is intentional, carefully engineered through observation, technical skill, and insight into human perception. Psychological complexity is another hallmark. Leonardo captured not only emotion, but also thought, contemplation, and internal conflict. His subjects are rarely passive. They engage with the world and the observer, conveying intellect, curiosity, and inner life. This dynamic quality makes his art timeless, as viewers recognize themselves in the expressions, gestures, and tensions he depicts, forming a bridge across centuries. The emotional resonance of Leonardo's work is intertwined with its hidden knowledge. Geometry, symbolism, and coded messages are not cold intellectual exercises. They are tools to deepen connection and convey layered meaning. A triangular composition, a subtle gesture, or a background element can evoke curiosity, awe, or introspection, merging emotional and intellectual engagement. Leonardo understood that humans respond to beauty, pattern, and subtle cues, and he used this to communicate on multiple levels simultaneously. Ultimately, Leonardo's art reminds us of the power of observation, empathy, and reflection. Each painting and sketch invites viewers to experience emotion as well as intellect, to see the world and themselves more deeply. His genius lies not only in technique or invention, but in his ability to capture the fleeting, intangible qualities of life, the thoughts, feelings, and aspirations that make us human. In conclusion, the emotional resonance of Leonardo's work completes the full spectrum of his genius. It is the heartbeat within the precision, the humanity within the hidden codes, and the soul within the geometric and mechanical frameworks. His art moves us because it sees us, mirrors us, and challenges us to perceive not only the visible, but also the emotional and spiritual truths hidden within the world and ourselves.